The quiet of the early morning hours on October 17, 2017, was shattered by an unimaginable horror at 912 Carlisle Street in Colorado Springs. Shortly after 1 a.m., emergency dispatchers received frantic calls reporting a stabbing, sending police officers racing towards the unsuspecting family home. What they were about to encounter would be described by veteran officers as nothing short of horrific, an extremely gruesome scene that would sear itself into their memories. Upon their urgent arrival, officers moved quickly to secure the residence. Inside, they discovered 42-year-old Jefferson Vinnie Murphy, bleeding from a serious stab wound to his neck. His 19-year-old son, Malik Murphy, was also present and quickly detained in the garage. In those initial chaotic moments, the full extent of the tragedy was not yet apparent. Vinnie, despite his grievous injury, had managed to subdue Malik, holding him until the authorities arrived. But then, a new wave of terror rippled through the house. The children's grandmother, who also lived in the home, began to scream, her voice laced with anguish. "Sophia's been stabbed!" The officers' attention, initially focused on Vinnie and Malik, now shifted with a dreadful urgency. Their search led them to a devastating discovery. 5-year-old Sophia Grace Murphy and her 7-year-old brother, Noah Kent Murphy, had both been viciously attacked. First responders, including police and AMR crews, launched desperate life-saving attempts, their training kicking in amidst the unfolding nightmare. The children, along with their father, were rushed to a nearby hospital. Tragically, despite the frantic efforts, Sophia and Noah would not survive their injuries. Vinnie Murphy would be the only one of the three to pull through. The sheer brutality of the attack, particularly against two small children, left even the most hardened professionals reeling. As Colorado Springs Police Lieutenant Howard Black would later state, "This is a very horrific scene, dealing with a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old. The nightmare on Carlisle Street had just begun to unfold, revealing a betrayal from within the family's own walls." Noah Kent Murphy, born on December 12, 2009, was a bright and engaging 7-year-old. A second grader at Edison Elementary School in Colorado Springs, he was known for his friendly nature and sharp mind. Noah possessed a vibrant imagination and was a familiar face to all his neighbors. He loved the typical joys of boyhood, video games and playing with Nerf guns. But his interests also extended to the outdoors. He enjoyed rollerblading, bicycling, and treasured the walks he took with his dad, Vinnie, to the local comic book store. His mother, Melissa, described him as witty and full of life, a little boy who always looked out for his younger sister. That younger sister was Sophia Grace Murphy, born on November 11, 2011. At 5 years old, she was a kindergartner, also at Edison Elementary. Sophia had a passion for reading and a sweet, easygoing nature. Her world was filled with the magic of Shopkins, Barbies, My Little Pony, and dollhouses. She had a curious fondness for old jewelry and delighted in swimming and trips to the library. Sophia loved spending time with her mom and had a welcoming spirit, often making new friends and helping new students feel at home in her school. Melissa remembered her as an easy, sweet little girl who made life worth living. Noah and Sophia were the youngest of 5 siblings in the Murphy household. They shared their home and their lives with their older brothers and sister, including Malik, and their 14-year-old brother Elijah and sister Hannah. The Murphys presented themselves as a very close-knit family, one that did everything together. Hours before the tragedy, Sophia and Noah had been happily playing football outside with Malik, a scene of innocent family fun that made the subsequent events even more incomprehensible. Their lives, so full of promise and simple childhood joys, were brutally extinguished in their own home, in the room they shared with the brother who was supposed to protect them. The community would soon mourn the loss of a second grader who loved comic books and a kindergartner who adored My Little Pony, their futures stolen in an act of unimaginable violence. Malik Murphy, born in 1998, was the eldest of the 5 Murphy children. To the outside world, and even within the family for a significant time, he was perceived as a loving, also accommodating, and supportive brother and son. His family described him as quiet and withdrawn, especially as he entered his teenage years. However, beneath this reserved exterior, a troubling darkness was beginning to take root. The first significant signs of Malik's mental health struggles reportedly emerged around the age of 15. His parents, Melissa and Vinny, noticed a profound shift in his demeanor. He told them he no longer believed in God and seemed to turn dark and uncomfortable. This period marked the beginning of a spiral into a deep depression, which left him unmotivated to finish high school, find a job, or enroll in college. One particularly alarming incident occurred while Malik was attending Lincoln Southeast High School before the family relocated. In a chilling confession, he later admitted that he had lain in wait inside a school bathroom, intending to surprise the next person who walked through the door and strangle them. His stated desire was to know how it felt to kill someone. Ultimately, Malik didn't go through with the physical act, reportedly because he was afraid his potential victim would fight back and overpower him. This disturbing episode was a stark indicator of the violent thoughts brewing within him. In an effort to provide a fresh start and perhaps distance Malik from whatever negative influences or triggers might have existed, the Murphy family moved to Colorado Springs several years before the fatal night. Unfortunately, the change of scenery did not resolve the underlying issues. Even earlier in his youth, Malik had made disturbing admissions to his parents, confessing that he had killed small animals. These early acts of cruelty, often seen as red flags for future violence, were another piece of a deeply unsettling puzzle that, in retrospect, pointed towards a capacity for harm. As Malik's teenage years progressed, the signs of his deteriorating mental state became more pronounced and alarming. The family found themselves navigating a confusing and frightening landscape of threats and erratic behavior, struggling to reconcile the loving brother they often saw with the disturbed individual who uttered terrifying intentions. On at least 3 separate occasions, Malik threatened to harm his family. One of the most explicit warnings came in April of 2016. A therapist working with Malik at the time grew so concerned that she reported he had told her he wanted to kill his entire family with a kitchen knife. The health worker also expressed significant concern that Malik's mother, Melissa, was not taking his threats seriously enough. From the parents' perspective, however, it was a bewildering situation. Melissa stated that it was hard to take her son's threats seriously, especially when his actions showed him only as an extremely loving brother. This contradiction, where his verbalized threats seemed to clash with his day-to-day behavior towards his siblings, made it difficult for them to gauge the true level of danger. He was the brother who often babysat Noah and Sophia, and was described by their grandfather as being very protective of them. In their attempts to help their son, the Murphys engaged extensively with the mental health system. Malik had been to 6 or 7 different psychiatric facilities in his life, including 3 visits to Aspen Point's Lighthouse in Colorado Springs, a short-term stabilization center. They tried various therapies, including psychoanalytic therapy, and he was placed on medications like Zoloft, often prescribed for depression. Professionals grappled with diagnosing him. He received a diagnosis of depression and antisocial personality disorder, the latter associated with homicidal ideations and a lack of regard for others' rights. One mental health professional believed he had bipolar disorder, though an official diagnosis was never made, and they stopped just short of diagnosing him with schizophrenia. No single label seemed to fit perfectly. As his parents said, no one had a real term for Malik. He went against the textbook. A neighbor also reported observing Malik with behavioral issues, having found him on their porch completely incoherent due to taking pills and drinking. Despite these interventions and observations, a clear path to stability for Malik remained elusive, and the underlying homicidal thoughts continued to fester, largely unseen or perhaps underestimated by those around him. The troubling incidents involving Malik were not confined to verbal threats or internal struggles. They sometimes spilled over into tangible, destructive actions. In March of 2017, just 7 months before the murders, Malik was arrested in Effingham, Illinois. Police there had received a report of a vehicle on fire, with a man dressed entirely in black calmly watching it burn. When an officer approached Malik, he turned and bluntly stated, "I set the car on fire." The vehicle was a white 2004 Ford Explorer belonging to his parents. Malik told detectives a convoluted story. He claimed to be in trouble for illegal possession of alcohol back in Colorado Springs and had borrowed his mother's car for a job interview. but then decided to drive to Ohio to visit a friend. He admitted to stopping for gas on several occasions and even contacting police himself to inform them he'd taken his parents' car without permission, though he said authorities told him it hadn't been reported stolen. He then confessed to pouring gasoline in the back seat and using pieces of a coloring book to ignite it. His parents had in fact reported the SUV as stolen. However, Melissa Murphy stated she was told that since she had handed him the keys, there was little police could do. Compounding the family's distress, Melissa also reported that when the vehicle went missing with Malik, her prescription narcotic medication also disappeared. Following the arson, Malik's parents informed Illinois investigators about their son's antidepressant use, his hearing aids for ear issues, and his history of running away when feeling pressured. Despite the seriousness of the charges, criminal damages to property and arson, the case was dismissed a few months later, in August 2017. This dismissal came after his parents requested the charges be dropped, stating that although their son had severe mental health problems, he had no prior criminal history. The court agreed, but with the stipulation that Malik receive mental health treatment, which consisted of 12 counseling sessions. Unbeknownst to his parents during this period, Malik had purchased a hunting knife from Walmart. He later admitted to detectives that he bought this knife several months prior to the October attack with the explicit purpose of killing his family. His parents also became legally shut out of his mental health treatment once Malik turned 18. They claimed they were unaware he had recently decided to switch counselors and had no idea he was experiencing specific homicidal ideations. They believed he was primarily being treated for depression. This lack of access to information about their adult son's mental state would later become a painful point of reflection for the grieving parents. The day of October 16, 2017, began like many others for the Murphy family. Hours before the unspeakable violence, Malik was outside in the front yard, playing football with Noah and Sophia. He was seen laughing. Yet, later that evening, as bedtime approached, Melissa Murphy recalled sensing a shift in his demeanor. When Sophia came to her parents' room for her typical midnight bathroom run, with Malik accompanying her as usual, Melissa felt an irritability from him. "I remember him being real annoyed, just feeling that off of him," she would later recount, replaying those final, seemingly ordinary moments. Around 1 a.m. on October 17th, the carefully constructed plan Malik had harbored for months was set into motion. He went to the basement room he shared with Noah and Sophia. Armed with the hunting knife he had purchased, he attacked his sleeping siblings. During the assault on Sophia, the little girl cried out his name. He would later tell detectives he stabbed each child 3 times. The children's screams, particularly Sophia's, pierced the night. Vinnie Murphy was jolted awake. "Malik met me at the top of the stairs as I was going to turn the corner to go down the stairs," Vinnie recalled. "I was face to face with him for a split second, then I see the knife raised and come down into my neck." A desperate struggle ensued. Vinnie, despite the knife lodged in his neck, fought back fiercely, punching Malik and managing to push his son into the garage, where he held him down. Melissa woke to the sounds of grown men screaming and found her husband and son fighting in the garage. "It was such confusion," she remembered. "Vinnie's still yelling, 'He stabbed me!' And Vinnie is reaching around me and he is still punching Malik." At this point, the fate of Noah and Sophia was still unknown to the parents. It was the children's grandmother, also in the house, who made the horrifying discovery. Her scream, "Sophia's been stabbed," sent Melissa running. "I don't know Sophia's upstairs, so I go running upstairs to the room and I find my Noah, and he's at the bottom," Melissa wept. "He was out of bed, he was on the floor, there was so much blood. I knew he was gone." Leaving Noah, she raced to find Sophia, who, despite her fatal injuries, had managed to make her way up the stairs and was found outside her parents' bedroom door. "All she wanted was me," Melissa said. Their 14-year-old son, Elijah, bravely called 911 amidst the chaos, while his sister Hannah somehow slept through the initial terrifying events. The family's sanctuary had become a scene of unimaginable carnage. Following his detainment in the family garage by his injured father, Malik Murphy was arrested by the responding Colorado Springs police officers. During his interrogation, the 19-year-old readily admitted to his horrific actions. He told detectives that he had, for months, harbored homicidal ideations and had ultimately decided to kill his entire family. His stated motive was chillingly simple. He wanted to be alone in the home. His plan, he confessed, was to murder everyone and then bury their bodies in the backyard. Malik recounted the night's events, admitting he grabbed the hunting knife he kept by his bed, the one purchased from Walmart for this very purpose, and began stabbing his sister, Sophia, while she slept. He detailed stabbing both Sophia and Noah 3 times each. He also confessed to stabbing his father, Vinny, when he came downstairs to investigate the screams. At one point during the questioning, Malik declared, "I can't stop thinking about killing people," and chillingly referred to the murder of his siblings as just something that he had to do. His behavior in the interrogation room was erratic. He was seen on camera banging his head against the wall and lying on the floor, repeating, "No, no, no. Oh my God, why? And Malik, what did you do?" Malik Murphy was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder for the deaths of Noah and Sophia, and 1 count of attempted first-degree murder for the attack on his father. He was held without bond. In April 2018, Malik entered a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. This triggered a lengthy period of psychiatric evaluations to determine his mental state at the time of the crime and his competency to stand trial. After more than a year of assessments by multiple doctors, he was ultimately found to be legally sane. Finally, in December 2019, over 2 years after the brutal killings, Malik, then 22 years old, accepted a plea deal. He pleaded guilty to 2 counts of second-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. He was sentenced to serve 2 consecutive terms of 48 years in prison for the murders of Noah and Sophia, resulting in a total of 96 years. He also received a 16-year sentence for the attempted murder of his father, to be served concurrently. During the sentencing hearing, Melissa Murphy delivered a powerful and heart-wrenching victim impact statement, addressing her eldest son directly. "How dare you, Malik," she exclaimed, "commit the most unspeakable act towards your own little brother, sister, and father. This sentence of 96 years is most appropriate for you. You do not deserve life outside of prison. You stole Noah and Sophia's life. You kill, you go to jail." She also acknowledged the complex interplay of factors, stating, "I believe that evil and mental illness is responsible for what Malik did. Malik has a real mental illness that somehow was able to either go diagnosed incorrectly or diagnosed at all. And it is a terrible damn shame, sincerely." The murders of Noah and Sophia Murphy sent shockwaves of grief and disbelief far beyond their family home. The Colorado Springs community reeled from the news of 2 young children killed in such a brutal manner, allegedly by their own brother. Marcus Mason, the children's uncle, voiced the family's profound devastation. "We are living the worst nightmare. This can't be real." He expressed the torment of knowing the children had to go out terrified with a family member doing that to them. Shortly after their deaths, a vigil was held at Flanagan Park in Colorado Springs. More than a dozen people gathered, lighting candles to honor the memories of 5-year-old Sophia and 7-year-old Noah. Pink and blue balloons were released as neighbors and friends tried to comprehend the unthinkable. One attendee, visibly shaken, remarked, "It's hard, especially when you see the kids out playing all the time." The community's shock was palpable. Many had seen Malik playing with his younger siblings and could not reconcile that image with the accused killer. The children's funeral was held on Monday, October 23, 2017, at Mountain Springs Church, a place where they had enjoyed Bible study classes. They were later buried side by side at the Evergreen Cemetery in El Paso County, Colorado. For Melissa and Vinny Murphy, the aftermath was a daily struggle with an unbearable reality. "Each day we're hit with a horrible reality of what happened," Melissa stated in court. "Now, we've lost 3 children." Their journey was one of toggling between anger, confusion, profound grief, and a lingering, complicated love for Malik. "Some moments in the day we're so angry at Malik that it's a good thing that we're not left in a room alone with him," Melissa admitted months after the attack. Yet, she also confessed, "And then, there's other moments and days where I just grieve the loss of my son. I love Malik. I don't hate him. A mother's love doesn't just shut off like a switch. The path to forgiveness was, as Vinny described, a very interesting, winding road. While in jail, Malik reportedly told a 9 News reporter he was extremely sorry for his actions, claiming it wasn't at all like him. His parents, leaning heavily on their faith, family, and community support, spoke of their hope to eventually find forgiveness, though the pain remained raw. They also voiced concerns about the mental health system, highlighting the faultiness that, in their view, enables families to not be successful, particularly when laws prevented them from being involved in Malik's treatment once he turned 18. They felt that if a more comprehensive inventory of Malik's life and mental status had been possible, the tragedy might have been averted. Their story became a tragic call for greater awareness and support for families grappling with severe mental illness. Lansdowne Station is a small village in the backwoods of Nova Scotia. Here you can hear the sound of trees more than cars, dense forests, dirt roads, and few houses scattered around. The locals know each other by name, but what matters most is the nature that is always close by. On one such quiet street, Garlock Road, lived the Sullivan-Martell family. The mother, Malia Brooks Murray, her common-law husband Daniel Martell, their shared 16-month-old daughter, and Malia's 2 older children from a previous relationship, 6-year-old Lily and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan. They have resided here for the past 2 years. Lily, like many girls her age, loved pink. Her clothes often included pink sweaters and boots. Jack, the younger brother, wore diapers, loved blue rubber boots with dinosaurs on them, and was interested in insects. Their biological father was not involved in the children's lives. He was reportedly under house arrest. Please continue to leave your cities in the comments. It's very inspiring to me. Thank you for your incredible support of my channel. Make sure to subscribe and consider becoming a channel sponsor to help continue raising awareness about these important issues. Please share this video with your friends. The little angels deserve to be remembered. Let's get back to the case. Malia and Danielle took primary care of the children. The morning of Friday, May 2nd, 2025, began like many others in the rural quietude of Lansdowne Station. However, what started as an ordinary day would soon unravel into a perplexing mystery that would grip the region and beyond. By mid-morning, the unthinkable would be reported. Lily and Jack Sullivan were missing. The initial jarring report that reached authorities painted a picture of innocence gone astray. 2 young children, last seen playing at home, believed to have simply put on their rain boots and wandered out of their backsliding door, disappearing into the vast, unforgiving wilderness that bordered their yard. According to the early accounts provided by their stepfather, Daniel Martell, the children had been in another room playing around 8:30 a.m., while he and Malia were in their bedroom with their toddler, feeding her. He recalled hearing Jack in the kitchen and noted that Lily had poked her head into their bedroom once or twice. Then, a period of silence, estimated at about 20 minutes, prompted Daniel to investigate. He found the kitchen empty, the children nowhere inside the house. The only clue, he would later state, was the absence of their rubber rain boots. He assumed they had slipped out quietly. This initial belief that Lily and Jack had innocently wandered off set the stage for an urgent, sprawling search. But as the hours turned into days, the seemingly simple narrative of 2 lost children would become clouded by conflicting accounts, troubling inconsistencies, and a deepening sense of unease, leaving a tight-knit community and a wider audience asking, what truly happened to Lily and Jack Sullivan in the silent, watchful woods of Nova Scotia? The answer, it seemed, was as elusive as the children themselves. The initial shock of Lily and Jack's disappearance soon gave way to a confusing tapestry of slightly, yet significantly different recollections from their mother, Malia Brooks Murray, and stepfather, Daniel Martell. As investigators began piecing together the timeline of that Friday morning, May the 2nd, these variations became critical points of scrutiny. Daniel's account, as first reported, placed him and Malia in their bedroom around 8:30 a.m., attending to their 16-month-old daughter. He claimed to have heard Jack in the kitchen and seen Lily briefly. It was the subsequent 20-minute silence that alerted him to their absence. However, another version emerged, closer to what Malia would later tell the media. In this telling, both parents were still in the main bedroom, not fully awake, but aware of the children playing in another room. Malia described herself as drifting in and out of sleep. When she fully awoke to silence, the alarm bells sounded. Notably, both parents consistently stated they had not actually seen Jack that morning, only heard him. The description of his clothing, a brown shirt and pants with a pull-up diaper, was based on what he wore the previous night. This discrepancy over whether the parents were actively tending to their baby or waking up introduced an element of ambiguity. Daniel also later added a detail. He claimed he had asked Lily and Jack to be quiet several times that morning so the baby could continue sleeping. This raised a new question. Was the baby eating, as initially suggested, or sleeping? For a 16-month-old, these activities might not be mutually exclusive, but the shifting emphasis was noted. The most puzzling detail was the state of the back sliding door. Daniel observed that it was closed when he realized the children were gone. This, he pointed out, was unusual. Normally, he said, Lily and Jack would leave the door wide open after going in or out, and he would often have to remind them to close it. The fact that it was found closed, presumably after they had exited, seemed odd. Alongside this, their rubber rain boots were missing, pink ones for Lily, blue dinosaur-themed ones for Jack, leading to the assumption they'd put them on before venturing outside. Daniel also believed Lily had taken her white, strawberry-patterned backpack. Adding another layer of confusion was the account from the children's biological paternal grandmother, Belinda Gray. She stated that Jack and Lily were last seen on Thursday night when put to bed, then heard playing on Friday morning around 8:30 a.m., after which their mother and stepfather, who were in another room, fell back asleep. Upon waking to silence, they discovered the children missing and called 911 around 9:40 a.m. However, a police dispatch call reportedly mentioned that Jack and Lily went missing around 8 a.m., not closer to the 9:40 a.m. time Daniel had cited for the 911 call. This crucial 20 minutes of silence before discovery, as Daniel termed it, became a focal point. If the children had been unheard for only that long, how far could they have realistically gone, especially if they had to navigate a fence or unfamiliar terrain? The discrepancies in when they were last heard, what the parents were doing, and the precise timing of the 911 call created a murky foundation for an investigation into two young lives that had seemingly vanished into thin air. These conflicting chronicles of a quiet morning would soon fuel speculation and complicate the desperate search unfolding outside their Garlock Road home. Once Daniel Martell realized Lily and Jack were not in the house, he claimed his first instinct was to jump in his vehicle and begin scouring the nearby dirt roads and culverts, a frantic, independent search for the missing children. Meanwhile, back at the Garlock Road home, Malia Brooks Murray contacted 911, officially setting in motion a large-scale emergency response. By the time Daniel returned, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP, were already on scene. The authorities launched their search almost immediately. The operation quickly escalated, drawing in helicopters, drones, and an estimated 160 emergency service personnel. Volunteer ground search and rescue teams, the Civil Air Search and Rescue Association, the Nova Scotia Guard, the Salvation Army, and various specialized RCMP units, including police dogs and drone operators, converged on the rural area. Daniel recounted that upon his return, police initially told him he wasn't allowed back into the woods to continue searching. However, he said a man in military gear subsequently permitted him to re-enter, so he jumped the fence and resumed his personal efforts, describing himself as running through the woods, screaming their name until I felt her, and wading through waist-deep water, often ahead of the official search assets. Despite the immediate and comprehensive nature of the search, the terrain itself presented a formidable challenge. The area surrounding the family home was described as not just wooded, but densely forested and dangerous, making movement difficult even for trained professionals. Compounding these difficulties, the weather in the region had been rainy and nasty, rendering the ground wet, slippery, and conditions generally unfavorable for both the searchers and, ominously, for anyone lost within it. One of the critical early decisions made by law enforcement was regarding the type of alert issued. While a vulnerable missing persons alert went out to the public on Saturday, May 3rd, an Amber Alert was not activated. police stated this was because they did not believe at that stage that the children had been abducted. Their working theory was that Lily and Jack had simply wandered away on their own and become lost. This distinction was significant. An Amber Alert, typically reserved for suspected abductions of children under 18 where sufficient descriptive information is available, carries a wider, more urgent reach. Malia and Daniel, however, were vocal in their disagreement with this assessment, pushing for an Amber Alert. They feared abduction was a real possibility and felt a broader alert was necessary to ensure everyone in the wider area was aware and vigilant. Malia expressed that people had texted her saying they weren't even aware the children were missing until informed by others. Early in the ground search, there were small, fleeting moments of hope. Authorities reported finding a single boot print towards the end of the driveway. Daniel, in one account, mentioned 2 boot prints found about 10 meters from the home in the backyard. Whether these were from one or both children, or definitively linked, remained somewhat unclear in public statements. More unsettlingly, when police brought in scent dogs, the animals were reportedly able to track the children's scent, but the trail ended abruptly at the road. This particular detail raised immediate questions. Had the children reached the road? And if so, what happened next? Daniel himself would state that Lily and Jack had never crossed the street by themselves, nor had they ever gone into the woods alone, deepening the mystery of how their scent could have led to the roadside. As the search for Lily and Jack intensified, so did the scrutiny of every detail about the children and their home life. Lily, 6, was described as having shoulder-length light brown hair with bangs and was possibly wearing a pink sweater, pink pants, and pink boots, carrying a white backpack with strawberries. Jack, 4, with short blondish hair, was last seen in a pull-up diaper and blue dinosaur boots, with Daniel later adding he was also wearing a brown shirt and brown pants. The clothes from the previous night, as neither parent had physically seen him on the morning of the disappearance. A significant point of contention and confusion arose around the children's verbal abilities and behavior, particularly in the context of their possible autism, as their mother Malia described it. Malia stated that while they had possible autism, it wasn't extreme, mainly causing issues with keeping up with peers at school. She, along with Daniel, repeatedly emphasized in interviews how friendly and chatty both children were. "They'll talk to anyone, they want to go with anyone," Daniel said, adding, "They're just looking to have as much fun as they can." Malia echoed this, saying, "They're so sweet, they talk to anyone, they'll talk your ear off." This portrayal supported their theory that the children might have willingly gone with a stranger. However, this depiction contrasted sharply with statements from others. The children's aunt, in a social media post, reportedly described both children as nonverbal. A teacher who had worked with Lily and Jack offered a more nuanced view, stating they weren't shy but were minimally verbal. This discrepancy was significant. Were these outgoing children who might engage easily with an unfamiliar adult, or were they less communicative, perhaps making a quiet, unnoticed departure or abduction scenario seem more plausible from a different angle? Their bus driver also commented, noting Lily often let out high-pitched squeals and was a bit of a drama queen, while Jack was very chatty and would throw his boots to get attention if ignored. Footage from Jack's second birthday party showed Lily screaming excitedly, suggesting a tendency towards loud expressions. The question of their school attendance also became muddled. Daniel initially told investigators they hadn't gone to school on Thursday or Friday because Lily had a cough. Later, he reportedly said they hadn't been to school all week. However, a bus driver and a teacher would later confirm seeing Lily in school on Monday, May 28th. This inconsistency about when they were last verifiably seen by individuals outside the family home raised further questions about the precise timeline leading up to their disappearance. The physical layout of their home environment also presented a puzzle. Aerial shots revealed the backyard was fenced in. While described as not the most sturdy and possibly having gaps, the fence led many to wonder how 2 young children could have slipped out unnoticed. Adding to this, a trailer was situated on the property near the backyard, reportedly occupied by Daniel's mother and brother. This trailer was very close to the sliding door from which the children were said to have exited. If Daniel's relatives were home that morning, They too, apparently, heard and saw nothing unusual. A particularly strange incident occurred when searchers found a pink blanket about an hour after the search began. Given that Lily's favorite color was pink and she owned a pink blanket, it seemed like a promising find. However, when police showed it to Daniel, he asserted it did not belong to Lily, despite no other children living nearby. Amidst these domestic puzzles, an external lead did surface: a suspicious black Honda CR-V. A witness reported seeing a man in his mid-50s, bald with a mustache, driving the vehicle away from the permanently closed Lansdowne Recreation Center, less than a mile from the Sullivan Martell home, not long after the children went missing. This sighting was relayed to authorities, offering a tangible, albeit unconfirmed, thread for the abduction theory the parents favored. Yet, as questions mounted about the events within and around the Garlock Road home, and with Daniel's prominent scratch on his face, which he explained as a result of searching through dense woods, the parents' unwavering insistence on abduction felt increasingly set against a backdrop of troubling inconsistencies. The strain of the ongoing search and the mounting public scrutiny appeared to take a toll on the family unit, leading to a significant development just a day after Lily and Jack were reported missing. On Saturday, May 3rd, Malia Brooks Murray made the decision to leave the Garlock Road home. She took her 16-month-old daughter and went to stay with her own mother elsewhere in the province. The reasons cited for Malia's departure pointed to severe internal pressures. Reports suggested that her family was blaming Daniel Martell for the children's disappearance. This led to an argument involving multiple family members, culminating in Daniel's mother, who also resided on the property, allegedly asking Malia to leave. Soon after, it was confirmed by Malia's mother that she and Daniel had, in fact, broken up amidst the unfolding crisis. Daniel would later mention that Malia had blocked him on social media, though it was also stated she had simply deactivated her Facebook profile. With Malia largely removed from the immediate vicinity of the search in the home, Daniel became the more public face of the parental anguish and effort. He gave several interviews, and in one notable exchange, he spoke about his desire for a polygraph test. "That's not just on me, but on everyone. That's what I asked for," he stated, explaining he had requested it early on. When asked why he felt it was necessary, Daniel replied, "I think their side of the family doesn't believe me, and I just want to clear it up for everyone. Clear it up for everyone, not just the people online making crazy accusations and everything else." His insistence on the polygraph, while potentially a sign of wanting to prove his innocence, also highlighted the deep fractures and accusations that had apparently developed between him and Malia's family. As time went on with no trace of Lily and Jack, online speculation intensified. Conflicting statements from their parents only fueled public curiosity. One widely discussed rumor involved a party allegedly held at the family's home on Garlock Road just days before the children went missing. A local resident claimed the house had a reputation as a drug house, and that they weren't even aware children lived there. According to this person, the driveway had been packed with cars late into the night, until at least 2 a.m., suggesting a large gathering. This led to theories that the children might have accidentally come into contact with drugs or another harmful substance. Meanwhile, others focused on Daniel Martell's behavior in interviews. Some noticed he appeared to use the past tense when speaking about the children, saying, for example, "Jack just absolutely loved bugs and dinosaurs." While it may have been a slip, it caught the attention of online sleuths. Speculation also centered around the children's behavior. Both were said to be possibly autistic and highly energetic. Some questioned whether their constant activity had placed strain on the adults in the household. Malia had previously mentioned that the noise they made would be missed. Their bus driver also commented that Lily often squealed loudly and that Jack had a habit of throwing his boots when he couldn't get attention. With Malia moving out, the couple's relationship ending, Daniel requesting a polygraph, and rumors about parties and the children's behavior swirling online, the story had clearly shifted. What began as a desperate search for 2 missing children was now entangled in suspicion and internal family conflict. Hopes for a simple explanation were quickly fading. On Wednesday, May 7th, 5 days after Lily and Jack were last seen, the RCMP made a sobering announcement. The large-scale active search would be scaled back. According to officials, teams would now focus on researching specific areas that had already been combed. The reason? Survival was no longer considered likely. Given the children's ages, the dangerous terrain, and the poor weather conditions, authorities acknowledged that the chance of finding them alive had dropped significantly. The mission was no longer about rescue. It had shifted to recovery. Although the investigation remained active, the tone of the operation had changed. The goal now was to find the children, but the expectation was that they would not be found alive. Daniel Martell, in an interview around this time, still clung to hope, questioning why anything from Jack's pull-up to her backpack or any of her belongings at all, had been discovered if they were in the woods. Throughout the initial days of the search, and underscored at this press conference, was the consistent involvement of the RCMP's Major Crime Unit. While police officials often state that treating a missing person case as suspicious from the outset is standard procedure, especially with young children, the sustained presence of major crimes fueled public and media speculation that investigators were looking at more than just a case of children getting lost. When pressed during the May 7th conference to elaborate on whether they had detected any criminal activity, police remained cautious. When somebody goes missing, we will look at all the details. When it comes to a missing person, we have to automatically consider, are there people that have different charter implications? So we will automatically start to consider what evidence is pointing us towards a suspicious in nature. Again, I can't comment more than that, but every missing person case, we would approach it from the same process. Despite the official scaling back, the investigation was far from over. Investigators pledged to continue to investigate and chase leads for as long as, and as hard as we have to, appealing for anyone with information to come forward. But the announcement marked a somber turning point, officially acknowledging the likelihood of a tragic outcome and shifting the narrative from a desperate race against time to a methodical and likely prolonged search for answers and, heartbreakingly, for the children themselves, in whatever state they might be found. The hope of bringing Lily and Jack home safe had diminished to a faint whisper. As the official search scaled back, the unresolved discrepancies and unanswered questions surrounding Lily and Jack's disappearance loomed larger than ever, creating a vortex of uncertainty and suspicion. The core narrative provided by the parents was riddled with inconsistencies that investigators and a concerned public struggled to reconcile. One of the most glaring issues remained the timeline. When exactly did the children go missing? Daniel Martell initially spoke of a 20-minute window of silence around 8:30 a.m. on Friday, May 2nd, leading to their discovery as absent. Malia Brooks Murray's account suggested she woke to silence after drifting in and out of sleep. However, Belinda Gray, the children's paternal grandmother, indicated the 911 call was made around 9:40 a.m., while a police dispatch log reportedly noted the children went missing closer to 8:00 a.m. This variability was crucial, a difference of nearly 2 hours in when they might have vanished, versus when help was called, significantly altered the potential scope of their wanderings, or the time frame for any other event. The parents' own accounts of their activities that morning also presented a moving target. Were they awake and feeding their baby, as one version suggested, or were they still in bed, semi-conscious of the children playing, as another indicated? Daniel's later statement that he'd asked Lily and Jack to be quiet so the baby could sleep added another layer to this, subtly shifting the dynamic from passive awareness to active interaction, however brief. Then there was the matter of their last confirmed independent sighting. Daniel initially stated the children hadn't attended school on Thursday or Friday because Lily had a cough. This was later revised, by some accounts, to them not having been in school all week. Yet a bus driver and a teacher confirmed Lily, at least, was in school on Monday. If they hadn't been in school since Monday, as one interpretation of Daniel's shifting statements suggested, it raised the deeply disturbing possibility that the children might have been missing, or something amiss, for days before the Friday morning alarm was raised. This would drastically alter the survivability calculations and the entire complexion of the case. The physical evidence, or lack thereof, was equally perplexing. The scent dogs tracking the children to the road, where the trail vanished, could imply they were picked up in a vehicle, lending credence to an abduction theory. Yet, if they had simply wandered to the road, where did they go next? The single, or possibly two, boot prints found near the home offered little more than confirmation they had been outside. The denial by Daniel that a found pink blanket belonged to Lily, despite her preference for the color and lack of other children nearby, remained an odd footnote. Community members and online observers grappled with the stark possibilities. Did Lily and Jack, young and perhaps with developmental differences that affected their understanding of danger, simply wander into the dense, unforgiving Nova Scotia woods and succumb to the elements? This was the scenario the scaled-back search implicitly pointed towards. Or were they abducted, as their parents insisted, perhaps by the man in the black Honda CR-V seen near the closed recreation center? This lead, while reported, seemed to have gained little public traction from investigators. The third, most sinister possibility, and one fueled by the inconsistencies and the family turmoil, was that something had happened to the children much closer to home, involving those tasked with their care. The heavy and continued involvement of the major crime unit, while standard procedure, did little to quell these suspicions. The narrative was fractured, the timeline blurred. This sense of deepening shadows intensified on Friday, May 9th, exactly 1 week after the children were reported missing. Reports, though unconfirmed officially, indicated a heightened police presence back at Daniel Martel's Garlock Road residence. Rumors circulated that authorities were conducting a search underneath the home. While the outcome of this alleged search wasn't immediately clear, its very occurrence signaled that investigators were leaving no stone unturned, even those uncomfortably close to the family. The silence from the woods was profound, but the unanswered questions screamed for resolution. As days turned into weeks, the mystery of Lily and Jack Sullivan's disappearance remained a raw, open wound for the Lansdowne Station community and for the wider audience captivated by their story. The investigation, though no longer a massive, active ground search, continued under the stewardship of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and its Major Crime Unit. The official status of Lily and Jack, as per the latest information available from the provided sources, was still missing. No trace of them, alive or deceased, had been publicly announced. The profound and lasting impact on those most directly involved was undeniable. Malia Brooks Murray, the children's mother, had retreated from the Garlock Road home and largely from the public eye, presumably grappling with her loss and the breakdown of her relationship with Daniel Martel. Her early interviews conveyed a mother's desperate hope and pain, her desire for an Amber Alert, and her anguish at the thought of her children alone and vulnerable. The silence that followed her departure left her ongoing suffering largely to speculation. Daniel Martel, the children's stepfather, remained a more visible figure, at least in the initial aftermath. His interviews, his presence during the early searches, and his public call for a polygraph test painted a complex picture. He projected an image of a stepfather desperate to find the children and clear his name amidst family accusations and online suspicion. The scratch on his face, the varying accounts of the morning, and his past tense slips in interviews, however, continued to be subjects of intense debate among those following the case. The weight of the unresolved situation, regardless of its true nature, would undoubtedly cast a long shadow over his life. For investigators, the challenge was immense. They were confronted with a frustrating lack of concrete physical evidence directly linking anyone to a crime or definitively pointing to the children's whereabouts. The conflicting narratives from the primary witnesses, Malia and Daniel, created a quagmire of inconsistencies that made establishing a definitive sequence of events incredibly difficult. The scent dogs losing the trail at the roadside, the ambiguous boot prints, and the disputed pink blanket were tantalizing but ultimately inconclusive clues. The passage of time, a critical enemy in any missing persons case, further eroded the chances of finding fresh evidence or reliable eyewitness accounts. The alleged search underneath Daniel's home on May 9th, if it occurred as rumored, yielded no publicly disclosed breakthroughs. The case of Lily and Jack Sullivan had become a chilling enigma. Will the truth about what happened to these two young children ever surface? Will their bodies, if the worst is to be assumed, ever be recovered from the silent, sprawling woods that seem to hold their secrets so tightly? These are the questions that continue to haunt not only their family and community, but also the investigators tasked with solving a case where every lead seemed to dissolve into the dense Nova Scotia undergrowth. The silence from the woods is in itself a screaming testament to a tragedy yet unexplained. For Lily and Jack, and for all those touched by their story, the desperate need for answers, for closure, remains. Until then, their disappearance serves as a heartbreaking reminder of how quickly innocence can vanish, leaving behind only a void filled with questions and an unbearable, lingering sorrow. The quiet of a Sunday morning in southeast Oak Cliff was violently torn apart by a sound that ricocheted through the Hood family home on Grambling Drive. It was just after 10:30 a.m. on January 7, 2024. Takoya Lester, IKEA Hood's mother, froze. The noise, sharp and concussive like a thunderclap, had originated from her 17-year-old daughter's bedroom. A chilling premonition gripped her. She'd heard her daughter, IKEA, say she needed to have an important, private conversation. IKEA had asked for a little time alone with him. Please continue to leave your cities in the comments. It's very inspiring to me. Thank you for your incredible support of my channel. Make sure to subscribe and consider becoming a channel sponsor to help continue raising awareness about these important issues. Please share this video with your friends. The little angels deserve to be remembered. Let's get back to the case. Now, this. Takoya rushed to IKEA's room, her heart pounding in her chest. "IKEA! IKEA!" she called out, her voice tight with rising panic. She reached the door and found it locked from the inside. Her knocks became more frantic, her calls more desperate. Silence was the only reply from within, a silence far more terrifying than any sound. IKEA Amari Hood was a name synonymous with vibrancy and promise. At 17, she was a junior at Lancaster High School, not just a student, but a shining star. Her talent on the school's Tigerette drill team was undeniable, her movements fluid and captivating. She poured the same passion into the next-level community dance group, which she had joined in 2019. Dance was more than a hobby for IKEA. It was a language she spoke with grace and power. Her radiant smile and infectious laugh were constants, drawing people to her. But recently, an even brighter light had entered IKEA's world. Just 3 weeks prior, in December 2023, she had given birth to a beautiful baby girl, Aislinn. Motherhood was a new chapter she embraced with all the dedication she brought to her dancing, filled with hopes and dreams for herself and her infant daughter. The setting for this unfolding tragedy was a modest home on Grambling Drive in the University Hills area of south-central Oak Cliff, Dallas. It was a neighborhood where Sunday mornings usually meant the distant sound of church bells or children playing, not the sharp crack of a gunshot followed by an ominous stillness. When IKEA didn't answer, Takoya's maternal instinct took over. She raced outside, her mind reeling, circling the house to her daughter's bedroom window. Her worst fears began to solidify. The window was open, and the screen, meant to keep the outside world at bay, was pushed outward, lying discarded on the grass. It was a clear sign of a hasty escape. Peering through the open window, Takoya Lester confronted a scene that would forever be seared into her memory, a moment that would irrevocably divide her life into a before and an after. Her daughter, IKEA, lay unresponsive on the floor. The vibrant energy that usually animated her was gone. A gunshot wound was visible. The life, the dreams, the laughter, all extinguished in an instant. The 911 call was frantic, laced with a mother's unbearable anguish. Dallas police and paramedics were dispatched to the Grambling Drive address. Upon arrival, they moved through the house to IKEA's bedroom. Takoya had already climbed through the window herself, cradling her daughter, refusing to accept the devastating truth her eyes were telling her. But the paramedics could only confirm what was tragically apparent. IKEA Amari Hood, at the tender age of 17, a new mother with her entire future stretching before her, was pronounced dead at the scene. The cause of death was a single gunshot wound. The hopes and dreams she held for herself and baby Aislinn had been violently, senselessly cut short. As investigators began to process the scene, The question of who could commit such an act hung heavy in the air. Witnesses at the scene quickly identified 17-year-old Trayvon Darnell Wright as the individual seen fleeing after the shot rang out, and Dallas police would soon announce that a warrant for his arrest was being issued. The peaceful Sunday morning had transformed into a nightmare, leaving a family shattered and a community searching for answers. Akia Amari Hood was a force of nature, her passion for dance evident to anyone who saw her move. As a junior at Lancaster High School, she was a standout member of the Tigerette drill team, her performances marked by a precision and flair that belied her youth. Coaches and peers alike recognized her extraordinary talent. Her body seemed to flow with an innate grace, making even the most difficult routines appear effortless. Students would often pause in the hallways between classes, captivated, as Akia practiced her moves, her dedication a quiet inspiration. When Akia danced, you couldn't look away. Her commitment to her craft extended beyond the school's gymnasium. In 2019, she had joined the Next Level community dance group in Dallas, seeking another avenue to hone her skills and express her artistry. Nairi Preston, the group's founder, saw Akia as a dance daughter. She recalled Aikia's arrival in 2019, describing her as vibrant, with a radiant smile and an ever-present laugh. But beneath the joyful exterior was a formidable work ethic. She was always trying to learn the new dance skills, what was needed, Preston remembered. Akia wasn't content with just being good. She was driven by an insatiable hunger to grow, to push her boundaries, to perfect every step. Her aspirations were clear and ambitious. Akia dreamed of graduating high school, attending college, and dancing at the collegiate level. Those who knew her talent believed she could achieve even more, potentially reaching professional stages. Her high school dance director admitted they were already discussing which college programs would best nurture her limitless abilities. Her notebooks were filled with choreography ideas, and her phone's watch history was a testament to her dedication, featuring countless videos of college dance teams and scholarship opportunities she meticulously researched. At home, Akia was the vibrant heart of a large and loving family. As one of 8 siblings, she had learned early on how to shine while also being an integral part of a team. Family gatherings were often enlivened by her playful side. The serious, focused dancer would transform into the goofy sister, organizing impromptu talent shows in the living room and patiently teaching her younger siblings routines she'd choreographed herself. Family meant everything to her, her mother, Takoya Lester, shared. Akia was the one who remembered everyone's birthdays, who made sure nobody felt left out. She was our connector. Her siblings described a sister who could seamlessly transition from a trusted confidant to a source of laughter, embodying a simple philosophy: family rises together. Then, in December 2023, Aikia's life expanded in a profound and beautiful way. The birth of her daughter, Aislinn, added a new, powerful dimension to her dreams. While some might have viewed teenage motherhood as an insurmountable obstacle, for Akia, it was additional motivation. "Watch me show my daughter what's possible," she'd told friends, her determination unwavering. "I'm going to dance on bigger stages now because she'll be watching." In the precious 3 weeks between Aislinn's birth and that fatal January morning, Aikia's bedroom became a poignant tableau of her dual passions. A crib stood beside her collection of dance trophies. Baby clothes shared drawer space with leotards and dance shoes. She would gently rock Aislinn in her arms while watching dance competitions on her phone, whispering to her newborn about the intricate moves, perhaps imagining the day they might practice together. Her phone's gallery reflected this new, interwoven life. Videos of complex choreography interspersed with Aislinn's first heart-melting smiles. Sketches of dance costume ideas alongside pictures of adorable baby outfits. She even created a special playlist for Aislinn, gentle songs that still possessed enough rhythm for Aikia to practice subtle movements while holding her child. Becoming a mother hadn't diminished Aikia's ambitions. It had amplified them. Her sister explained that Aikia had started planning even further ahead, talking about one day opening her own dance studio, a place where young mothers could bring their children while they pursued their passion for dance. For 17 brief, luminous years, IKEA Hood moved through the world with an undeniable purpose and an infectious joy. For 3 precious weeks, she embraced motherhood with the same fierce passion and dedication she brought to the dance floor. She never saw these paths as contradictory, but as complementary rhythms in the beautiful, intricate performance of her life, a performance that should have continued for decades, inspiring all who witnessed it. The young man at the center of the investigation, 17-year-old Trayvon Darnell Wright, had been a significant part of IKEA Hood's life for approximately 2 years. According to IKEA's family, their relationship was a turbulent one, characterized by an on-again, off-again pattern. This cycle of breaking up and reconciling often creates an unstable and emotionally charged environment, and in IKEA and Trayvon's case, it unfortunately masked deeper, more sinister issues. Disturbingly, IKEA's family later revealed a critical piece of context. There was a documented history of domestic violence between the 2 teenagers. While specific incidents were not detailed in the publicly released police reports, this history painted a grim backdrop to the events of January 7th. "My best advice is to leave and talk to somebody and get the help," IKEA's sister would later state, her words heavy with the tragic wisdom of hindsight, a plea born from immense pain. This history of abuse established a dangerous dynamic, one where control and volatility were present long before the final, fatal confrontation. The relationship took a significant turn when IKEA became pregnant. For months throughout the pregnancy, and in the initial weeks after Aislyn's birth, Trayvon Wright believed he was the father of the baby girl. Publicly, at least, he appeared to embrace the prospect of fatherhood. This belief became a central aspect of his identity, and undoubtedly shaped his connection to IKEA and the future he envisioned. But then came a revelation that would shatter this perception. A paternity test was conducted sometime after Aislyn was born in December 2023. The results were conclusive. Trayvon Wright was not the biological father. This scientific fact, irrefutable and stark, was a devastating blow to the foundation of their already fragile and troubled relationship. According to statements IKEA's mother, Takoya Lester, provided to the Dallas police, IKEA had made the difficult decision to inform Trayvon about these paternity test results on Sunday, January 7th. She had received the results in the mail days earlier. This was the important conversation she needed to have, the reason she had asked her mother for privacy with Trayvon that morning. The Dallas police affidavit confirmed this, noting, "Hood had planned to tell Wright this news on Sunday," her mother told police. This timing indicates that Trayvon was likely unaware of the definitive truth until that very morning. The tragic irony is that IKEA invited Trayvon into her home, into the perceived safety of her bedroom, to share this profoundly sensitive and life-altering information. Despite their tumultuous past and the history of domestic violence, she seemingly felt it was a conversation best had face-to-face. Her family members were elsewhere in the house. This decision, unfortunately, highlights a dangerous misconception often held by victims in abusive relationships: the belief that their intimate knowledge of their partner gives them some ability to manage or predict their reactions, even to news that could shatter their world. Experts in domestic violence consistently warn that moments of separation, rejection, or perceived humiliation are often the most dangerous periods in abusive relationships. When an abuser feels their control slipping away, especially through a public or deeply personal betrayal, the risk of violence can escalate dramatically. For Trayvon Wright, the paternity revelation represented multiple profound losses: the role of father he had anticipated, his perceived connection to IKEA through their child, and potentially his self-image and standing among his peers and family. The news was not just about biology, it was about identity, pride, and control. In the volatile context of teenage relationships, paternity disputes can be exceptionally perilous. The potent combination of immaturity, intense emotions, societal pressures around masculinity and reputation, and the potential implications of child support or involvement can create a perfect storm. When these pressures collide with an existing pattern of violence or control, the outcome can be, as it was for IKEA, catastrophic. IKEA's family would later emphasize their wish for her to be remembered not for the tragic way she died, but for the vibrant, loving person she was. She was beautiful. She was a beautiful soul. very vibrant. The life of the party, her sister shared. My sister was excited for her new journey of becoming a mother and growing a bond with all her siblings. This focus on Ikea's bright spirit and her hopeful anticipation of motherhood stands in stark, heartbreaking contrast to the dark relationship dynamics that led to her death. While Ikea viewed motherhood as a new beginning, a journey of immense possibility, Trayvon Wright apparently saw the paternity news as an unbearable affront, an ending that, in his mind, demanded a violent response. The stage was set for their final, fateful conversation on that Sunday morning. Ikea, just 3 weeks into her new life as a mother, prepared to share a difficult truth with someone who had been a fixture in her life for 2 years. She likely hoped for some level of understanding, perhaps even a path forward despite the biological reality. She couldn't have known that the person walking into her room was not there to talk, but to react, and that he carried with him the means to silence her permanently. January 7th, 2024, dawned with an uncharacteristic warmth for a Dallas winter. By 9:00 a.m., Ikea Hood had already attended to her newborn Aislinn, feeding and changing her before settling the baby in the nursery under her grandmother Takoya Lester's watchful care. The usual soundtrack of music that often accompanied Ikea's morning dance practices was absent. Her bedroom remained quiet, a space of focused preparation for a difficult conversation. She spent nearly an hour carefully choosing her outfit, finally settling on a comfortable Lancaster High sweatshirt and jeans. Standing before her mirror, she rehearsed the words she needed to say, words that would carry immense weight. At 9:47 a.m., her phone buzzed. It was a text from Trayvon Wright, confirming he was on his way. Ikea glanced towards the nursery where Aislinn slept peacefully, unaware that her mother's next interaction would irrevocably shape both their futures. "Mom, he's here!" Ikea called out, her voice attempting a steadiness her trembling hands belied. "We'll be in my room. It shouldn't take long." Takoya watched them disappear down the hallway. The soft click of Ikea's bedroom door closing behind them at 10:05 a.m. would echo in her memory. The door was then locked from the inside. What transpired in that room over the next 25 minutes can only be pieced together from forensic evidence, the layout of the room, and the fragmented but chilling account from Ikea's younger brother. He passed by the locked bedroom door twice while going to and from the bathroom. The first time, around 10:15 a.m., he overheard voices that were controlled yet audibly tense. He caught snippets of the exchange, Wright's accusatory tone. "You knew all along, didn't you?" Followed by Ikea's fragmented denial. "No, I didn't, I thought..." Before Wright cut her off. "Don't lie to me. Not anymore." Approximately 5 minutes later, when Ikea's brother passed by again, the atmosphere within the room had drastically changed. The voices were louder, the tone escalated, charged with anger and distress. He heard Wright say, "Everyone's laughing at me. My own family looks at me different now." Ikea's response was an attempt to de-escalate. "Nobody's laughing, Trayvon. This doesn't have to change everything between us." Wright's retort was chilling. "You made me believe that baby was mine for 9 months." Then came Ikea's frightened plea, words that proved tragically prophetic. "Lower your voice. You're scaring me." Unbeknownst to Ikea or her family, Trayvon Wright had arrived at the Hood residence with more than just the intent to talk. He carried a .38 caliber revolver, a weapon police later determined he had obtained just 2 days prior. This fact suggests a terrifying premeditation, transforming the encounter from a difficult conversation into a planned confrontation with a potentially lethal outcome. As Ikea attempted to navigate the treacherous emotional terrain, trying to salvage some form of connection or understanding, Wright's hand reportedly kept returning to the weapon concealed in his jacket pocket. His mind, it seemed, was already set on a course of action before he even crossed the threshold of her room. The news she delivered was not a surprise to be processed, but a humiliation he perceived as needing to be eliminated. The precise moment when the argument spiraled into deadly violence remains unclear. Did Ikea see the gun before it was raised? Did she have a moment to comprehend the imminent danger, to try and escape or defend herself? The only grim certainty is what occurred at precisely 10:30 a.m., a single deafening gunshot. The sound was so loud it startled a neighbor's dog into barking 3 houses away. Inside the Hood residence, time fractured. Takoya Lester, who had been folding laundry while keeping an eye on baby Aislinn, froze. Her son dropped his video game controller. For a few heartbeats, the household remained suspended in a state of shocked disbelief. That sound couldn't possibly be what they feared. Then, the maternal instinct surged, and Takoya sprinted down the hallway. "IKEA? IKEA!" Her fists pounded against the locked door. No response. She rattled the handle with increasing force, but the door remained stubbornly shut. The silence from within the room was more terrifying than any scream could have been. What Takoya did next was a testament to the power of a mother's fear and love. Instead of waiting for the door to be broken down, she raced outside, her mind a whirlwind of dread, and circled the house to IKEA's bedroom window. There, her worst fears were confirmed. The window screen was pushed outward, lying on the grass, evidence of a hasty escape. Through the open window, she saw an unimaginable sight. IKEA lay motionless beside her bed, a pool of blood spreading beneath her chest. Her eyes were open, but unseeing. The room showed signs of a brief, desperate struggle. A lamp was knocked over, a chair was pushed askew, and a mobile phone with its screen shattered lay on the floor. But of Trayvon Wright, there was no sign. Only the curtains, still gently swaying from his passage through the window, indicated how recently he had fled. At 10:40 a.m., the first police cruiser arrived at Grambling Drive, its siren wailing in response to Takoya's frantic 911 call. Officers found a scene of utter devastation. Takoya, having climbed through the window herself, was cradling her daughter's lifeless body, refusing to believe the irrefutable truth. Paramedics could only confirm the tragedy. IKEA Hood was dead, a victim of a single gunshot wound to the chest, fired at close range. As investigators began to painstakingly process the scene, one detective noticed something clutched tightly in IKEA's hand. Her fingers had to be gently pried open to retrieve it. A crumpled photograph of baby Aislinn, taken just days after her birth. In her final moments, IKEA's instinct had been to hold on to what mattered most. Outside, as news of the shooting rippled through the neighborhood, shocked neighbors gathered in hushed clusters. Inside, a 3-week-old baby girl began to cry, a poignant, innocent sound in a house suddenly filled with unimaginable grief, as if somehow sensing that the comforting voice that had soothed her since birth would never speak again. And somewhere in the sprawling city of Dallas, a 17-year-old boy was on the run, carrying the weight of a smoking gun and the delusional belief that he had somehow restored his honor by erasing the messenger of an unwelcome truth. The hunt for Trayvon Wright had begun. As crime scene technicians meticulously photographed and documented IKEA's bedroom on Grambling Drive, near University Hills Boulevard and East Wheatland Road, investigators noted a poignant detail in the bloodstain patterns on the floor. Unlike typical shooting scenes, this pattern suggested movement after the fatal injury. It appeared IKEA had tried to crawl a short distance. Following the subtle trail, officers realized she wasn't moving towards the door or the window in an attempt to escape. Instead, her path led towards the small desk where she kept photographs of her newborn daughter, Aislinn. She wasn't trying to escape, one seasoned officer observed quietly. She was reaching for her daughter's picture. This final instinctive act underscored the profound love she had for her child. Outside, the quiet residential street transformed into an active crime scene. The Dallas Police Department initiated a grid search operation, meticulously tracking Trayvon Wright's likely path from the residence. However, the immediate search yielded no trace of him. As dusk settled over Dallas, the investigation had rapidly gathered enough evidence, including compelling witness statements identifying Wright fleeing the scene, to solidify him as the primary suspect. Crucially, police sources confirmed to local news station WFAA the emerging motive. Wright had believed he was the father of IKEA's newborn baby. However, according to IKEA's mother, Takoya Lester, the child was not his. This critical piece of information, that IKEA had planned to tell Wright this devastating news on that very Sunday morning, was corroborated by Takoya's statement to investigators and included in official police communications. The motive was now tragically clear: a volatile reaction to a painful paternity revelation. The Dallas Police Department acted swiftly. On January 8th, merely a day after the fatal shooting, an arrest warrant was officially issued for Trayvon Darnell Wright. The warrant charged the 17-year-old with murder, setting in motion an intensive manhunt throughout the sprawling Dallas-Fort Worth metroplex. Recognizing the urgency and potential danger posed by the fugitive, law enforcement resources were mobilized across multiple agencies. The U.S. Marshals Task Force joined the Dallas Police in a coordinated effort to locate and apprehend Wright. Their combined efforts paid off quickly. On Tuesday, January 9th, approximately 48 hours after Ikea Hood was killed, Trayvon Wright was located and taken into custody. While the specific details of his capture were not immediately released to the public, Dallas County jail records confirmed that he was booked into the facility that morning. He was formally charged with murder, and his bond was set at $500,000. The arrest warrant affidavit provided a clearer, albeit heartbreaking, sequence of the events that transpired inside the Hood home. It detailed Takoya Lester hearing a loud noise around 10:30 a.m., her subsequent discovery of Ikea's locked bedroom door, and her desperate move to the outside window where she found it open and the screen pushed out. The affidavit recounted her horrifying discovery of Ikea suffering from a fatal gunshot wound, and the chilling fact that Wright was gone. These documented details painted a stark picture of the crime and Wright's immediate flight from the scene. As Wright began the legal process, the community and those following the case grappled with the psychology behind such a violent act. What could drive a teenager on the cusp of adulthood to kill the mother of a child he believed was his, moments after learning he was not the biological father? The case threw a harsh spotlight on the dangerous intersection of rejection, perceived humiliation, and unstable relationship dynamics. Domestic violence experts, familiar with similar tragic cases, explained that when an individual constructs a significant part of their identity around a particular role, such as impending fatherhood, and that identity is abruptly and publicly stripped away, the psychological impact can be shattering. For individuals who already exhibit control issues or have a history of aggression, this kind of revelation can feel like an intolerable public humiliation, triggering a disproportionate and violent response. Ikea's family later confirmed the troubled nature of her relationship with Wright. Ikea and her boyfriend were on and off again for a couple of years, and there was a history of domestic violence between them, Ikea's sister courageously shared with reporters. Her words highlighted the warning signs that had been present, a pattern of escalating control and violence that is tragically common in relationships that end in homicide. What often begins as jealousy or possessiveness can gradually intensify, eroding boundaries and normalizing abusive behaviors until a critical triggering event. In this instance, the paternity revelation pushes the situation past a point of no return. The Monday morning following Ikea's death cast a pall over Lancaster High School. Students arrived to face the official announcement, confirming what many had already seen spreading like wildfire across social media. Ikea Hood, a vibrant junior and talented Tigerette drill team performer, had been murdered. The school's hallways, usually bustling with teenage energy, became subdued, somber. Within hours, Ikea's locker transformed into a spontaneous shrine. Flowers, handwritten notes expressing grief and love, and cherished photos of Ikea mid-dance, her smile radiant, were taped to the metal door. Her teammates, heartbroken, affixed her competition number to the wall above the locker. Someone had thoughtfully placed her drill team boots at the base, polished to the high shine she always maintained. Her death represents a great loss for our district, Lancaster Independent School District officials stated in a formal announcement. We will be providing counseling and grief services for students and staff members impacted by this tragedy. Our thoughts and prayers are with her entire family and the Lancaster High School community. The counseling rooms filled almost immediately. Members of the Tigerette drill team huddled together, tears flowing, struggling to comprehend practices without Ikea's energy and laughter. Teachers who had witnessed Ikea's academic dedication flourish alongside her passion for dance sat stunned, grappling with the senseless loss of a promising young life. Even students who had only known her casually felt the profound weight of potential violently extinguished. Online, social media platforms buzzed with a spectrum of reactions. While many expressed shock, grief, and support for IKEA's family, some posts veered into victim-blaming or disrespectful commentary regarding the paternity situation. These discussions, though varied, underscored the public's attempt to make sense of an incomprehensible act. On Wednesday, January 10th, just 3 days after the shooting, hundreds of students, faculty, family, and community members gathered on Lancaster High School's practice field. They came together for a balloon release ceremony, a visual tribute to a life taken too soon. The crowd formed a large circle, with IKEA's grieving family at its heart. Her dance uniform was carefully displayed on a stand, her competition medals hanging from the collar, gleaming softly in the afternoon light. As scores of balloons, pink, white, and silver, were released, ascending into the vast Texas sky, a wave of sorrowful acceptance seemed to wash over the community. Each balloon represented a memory, a dream, a piece of the vibrant spirit that was IKEA Hood, now floating free, but gone forever from their midst. The grief that enveloped IKEA Hood's family was profound and multifaceted. Her mother, Takoya Lester, who was also referred to as Dakota Lester in one news report, faced the unimaginable task of navigating life after discovering her daughter in such horrific circumstances. For IKEA's 7 siblings, the loss of their connector, the vibrant sister who remembered every birthday and filled their home with laughter and impromptu dance routines, left an unfillable void. During the raw aftermath, as the family struggled to process their loss, IKEA's sister stepped forward, her voice trembling but resolute, to share a message born from heartbreak. "I think, we're dealing with 2 kids that had a baby and the emotions were high," she acknowledged, trying to make sense of the senseless. "I can't say it had something to do with domestic violence, but I wish I knew why he did what he did to my sister. I don't know." Yet, despite the confusion and pain, her plea to others was clear and urgent. For other girls out there in relationships, that may not be the best for them. Please leave. Please leave. I'm from the bottom of my heart, okay? I just planned my sister's funeral at 17. Please leave. Talk to your mom. Talk to your aunts. Talk to anybody in your family. Talk to somebody at school. Please get out of there. Her words, carrying the immense weight of her family's tragedy, resonated deeply, a stark warning echoing from the depths of their sorrow. At the center of this storm of grief was 3-week-old Aislinn, innocent and oblivious to the violent events that had robbed her of her mother. The family shared that the infant was palpably missing IKEA. "She hasn't slept. She's not eating. She's missing her mom," one family member explained, highlighting the invisible yet profound bond already formed between mother and child. IKEA's siblings vowed to rally around their baby niece, to provide her with the love and support she would so desperately need, and to ensure that as she grew, she would come to know the vibrant, loving mother who had adored her. "We love you, Kia. You are amazing, Kia," they exclaimed, their love for IKEA and their commitment to Aislinn unwavering. The family was determined that IKEA would be remembered for the life she lived, not just the tragic manner of her death. They spoke of her dreams, her passion for dance, her excitement about motherhood, and the bright future that had stretched before her. "This is amazing," Takoya Lester said at the balloon release, overwhelmed by the outpouring of support. "She just let me know. She left an impact on everybody. It's just her name alone. You say IKEA, and this is what it is. I know that her spirit is still here with us, just like with all these people being here." Dance studios across Dallas and beyond expressed their sorrow and support, recognizing the immense talent and potential that had been extinguished. IKEA was seen as a rising star, someone whose dedication and skill promised a bright future in the competitive dance world. Her loss was not just a personal tragedy for her family and friends, but a loss for the wider dance community. As the legal case against Trayvon Wright began to move through the court system, IKEA's story became a somber reminder of the devastating consequences of teen dating violence and the critical importance of recognizing warning signs. Experts reiterated that relationships characterized by an on-again, off-again pattern, jealousy, possessiveness, and emotional volatility, all elements reportedly present in IKEA and Trayvon's relationship, can escalate to dangerous levels. The tragic outcome underscored the need for young people to understand what constitutes a healthy relationship and to have access to resources if they find themselves in unsafe situations. Organizations like the National Dating Abuse Helpline, school counselors, and community youth support groups offer vital lifelines, providing confidential guidance and safe spaces for teens to discuss relationship concerns. The added complexities of young parenthood, especially when coupled with paternity questions, can amplify existing tensions. Community health centers and family support services often provide not just medical care, but also counseling and conflict resolution resources that can be crucial for young couples navigating these challenging circumstances. For IKEA's family, however, these broader implications offered little solace for their immediate, searing pain. They were left to navigate a future without IKEA, to raise Aislinn with stories and photographs of the mother she would never know in person. They clung to the memories of her radiant smile, her effortless dance moves, and her boundless love. During the balloon release, attendees couldn't help but notice how baby Aislinn, cradled in her grandmother's arms, sometimes made expressions that eerily mirrored her mother's. A certain determined set of her tiny jaw, a curious look in her wide eyes as she took in the world around her. In that innocent face, IKEA Hood's legacy continued, breathing, moving, living, a fragile, precious light defying the darkness of a bullet's intent. The echoes of a stolen future would reverberate for a lifetime, but so too would the enduring spirit of a young woman who danced, dreamed, and loved with all her heart. Madeline Soto, known to her loved ones as Maddie, was a young girl on the cusp of her teenage years, a girl who adored animals, found joy in playing the flute, and loved going fishing. The movie Lilo and Stitch held a special place in her heart, a testament to her sweet and loving nature. Born on February 22, 2011, to Jennifer Soto and Tyler Wallace, Maddie was described by those who knew her as silly, confident, and unfailingly kind to others, a girl with no known problems with anyone. She navigated the world with an ongoing struggle with anxiety and ADHD, difficulties she often tried her best to internalize. Her mother, Jennifer, also faced her own battles with mental health, managing bipolar disorder with medication, though challenges persisted. Madeline's biological father, Tyler, lived in Texas. His relationship with Jennifer had been brief. She became pregnant with Madeline during a period when Tyler had temporarily ended his engagement with another woman, Tatiana. Shortly after learning of the pregnancy, Tyler reconciled with Tatiana, and they married a few months after Madeline's birth in April 2011. Despite the distance, Madeline would visit her father and stepmother for a few weeks each summer, creating cherished memories of running through pumpkin patches, learning to fish, and feeding baby goats. Full-time, Madeline lived with her mother, Jennifer, in a condo in Kissimmee, Florida, a stone's throw from the magic of Disney World. Their home also included 2 roommates. Around 2018, when Madeline was about 7 years old, Jennifer began a relationship with Stephen Stearns. Stephen, then 37, had previously worked as a cast member at Disney World, but hadn't been employed in more recent years. He came from a wealthy family, transitioning from living in his parents' million-dollar home to sharing the Kissimmee condo with Jennifer and Madeline. On the evening of February 25, 2024, just 3 days after her actual birthday, Madeline's grandmother threw her a 13th birthday party at her house. It was a celebration of a milestone, a step into her teenage years. Following the party, Madeline's aunt drove her back to the Kissimmee condo, arriving around 10 p.m. Neither Jennifer nor Stephen had attended the party. Jennifer reportedly worked from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., and Stephen hadn't been invited due to a strained relationship with Madeline's grandmother. Jennifer arrived home around 11 p.m., by which time Stephen was also present in the condo. The night of her birthday celebration, a night that should have been filled with happy memories, would soon give way to a devastating turn of events, plunging her family and community into a nightmare. The sweet girl who loved Lilo and Stitch was about to become the subject of a frantic search, a heart-wrenching investigation, and a tragedy that would capture national attention. The day after Madeline's birthday party, Monday, February 26, 2024, began like any other school day, or so it seemed. But Madeline Soto would not arrive at Hunters Creek Middle School. The realization of her absence wouldn't dawn on her mother, Jennifer, until much later that afternoon. Around 4:30 p.m., Jennifer went to the school to pick Madeline up, only to be informed by staff that Maddie had never made it to her classes that day. School policy at the time, which has since been changed, was to contact parents about an absence after the school day concluded, not earlier in the morning. Panic began to set in. Jennifer, thinking Maddie might have walked to her grandmother's nearby office, a place Maddie had gone to after school in the past, rushed there. But Madeline wasn't there. School administrators confirmed, after checking attendance records, that Madeline had been absent from every period. Jennifer immediately started searching the surrounding area, both in her car and on foot. With no sign of her daughter and growing increasingly distressed, 2 unidentified women made calls to 911 on Jennifer's behalf from her mother's office building. One caller informed the dispatcher, "We have a missing child since this morning. We already called 3 times. She was last seen at the church next to Hunters Creek Middle School." The caller also stated Madeline had left her cell phone at home that day. It wasn't until nearly 8 p.m. that deputies from the Orange County Sheriff's Office responded to the calls and met with Jennifer. She was accompanied by a few individuals offering support, including her boyfriend, Stephen Stearns. Body camera footage captured the exchange. A distraught Jennifer explained, "She was supposed to be dropped off at school, didn't make it to school. I went to pick her up from the school today and she never came out. I got a notice, an email from the school saying she was absent, but I also messaged her teacher, and he looked at her entire attendance today and saw that she was completely not at school today either, so she never made it." When asked for a description of what Madeline was last seen wearing, Jennifer, prompted by Stefan, provided details. A green hoodie, white Crocs, and, after a slight correction from Stefan, who initially suggested blue or black pants, Jennifer clarified, "I think black shorts." This detail would later come under scrutiny. She also mentioned Madeline had a distinctive beauty mark near her nose. Jennifer informed officers that Madeline had never run away from home before, and that she had last seen her daughter the night prior, shortly before Madeline headed to bed around 11 p.m. The search for Madeline Soto was officially underway, but the story of her disappearance was already riddled with unsettling details and the quiet hum of impending dread. As deputies began piecing together the timeline of Madeline's last known movements, Stefan Stearns provided his account of the morning of February 26th. He claimed he was the one who drove Maddie to school that day, a task he said he performed on occasion, though other accounts suggested it was rare, with Madeline usually being taken by her mother or grandparents. Stefan told investigators that their original plan had been to get McDonald's for breakfast on the way to school, so they had woken up a bit earlier than usual, around 7 or 7:15 a.m. He estimated they left the condo between 7:30 and 7:45 a.m. According to Stefan, Madeline was asleep in the car for most of the ride. As they got close to McDonald's, he asked if she still wanted to go, but she declined. So, they continued towards Hunters Creek Middle School. However, Stefan stated he didn't drop Madeline directly on school grounds. Instead, he claimed she had asked him to drop her off a few blocks away, near the Peace United Methodist Church on Town Loop Boulevard in Kissimmee. The reason, he alleged, was that Madeline was embarrassed by the silver 2010 Lincoln he was driving and preferred not to be seen getting out of it at school. This drop-off location was approximately a 5-minute walk from the middle school. He estimated the drop-off occurred sometime between 8:20 and 8:40 a.m. He described the location as being along the stretch of road with communities on the right side before an overpass from which the overpass was visible. After she got out of the car, he said he told her, "Have a good day. Love you." To which she replied, "Thanks, love you too." He then claimed he watched her in his rearview mirror as he drove away. He saw her rummaging around in her backpack and he assumed she was looking for headphones or perhaps her phone, which she had forgotten at home that day. He said she was moving in the direction of the school and had mentioned she was going to find her friends and hang out with them. This detailed narrative from Stefan, the last person to purportedly see Madeleine, became a critical focal point for the investigators. He even took officers to the general area by the church where he claimed to have left her. "It was like around where these communities were," he explained, gesturing along the road. "We just came down and we drove about halfway down and she was like, 'That's good right here.'" His account painted a picture of a normal, if slightly unusual, school drop-off. But as the investigation would soon reveal, this carefully constructed story was about to unravel. After allegedly dropping Madeleine off near the church, Stefan Stearns claimed his day involved a series of errands and an unexpected mishap. He told investigators that he first drove to a vape shop, only to find it hadn't opened yet. He then said he returned to the apartment complex for a time before heading back to the vape shop later when it was open, where he purchased vape juice. Following the vape shop visit, Stefan said he set off to a game store called House Rules. However, much like other destinations he claimed to have intended to visit that day, he reportedly drove towards them, but never actually reached them. This pattern of driving near, but not arriving at, various locations was his explanation for why his car was captured by traffic cameras in different parts of Orange and Osceola counties, yet never seen on camera entering any specific restaurant or shop. Sometime between noon and 2 p.m. on February 26th, Stefan claimed he experienced a flat tire. He stated this occurred while he was pulled over somewhere on US 192, a rural road known for its relatively light traffic. He was unable to specify the exact location along US 192 where he stopped to change the tire, only recalling pulling into a plaza. Meanwhile, Jennifer Soto had her own account of the day. She told investigators that Stefan had left to take Maddie to school, and she herself didn't get out of bed until around 9 a.m., as she had a doctor's appointment. When she returned home around 11 a.m., Stefan was also back. He informed her that he had accidentally left his cell phone at home that morning, and, coincidentally, Maddie had also left her phone at home, a plausible occurrence for Maddie given her ADHD. However, Stefan was known to be constantly on his cell phone, making his claim of forgetting it seem less likely. Despite both supposedly forgetting their phones, Stefan told Jen that things had gone good that morning. He also mentioned offering Maddie McDonald's multiple times, but she had declined, which struck Jen as odd since getting McDonald's had been their original plan, and they had even woken up earlier for it. Contradictorily, while Stefan told Jen he'd asked Maddie about McDonald's multiple times, he also told police she slept the entire car ride. Later, after they had both returned home and hung out for a while, Stefan decided to update his iPhone and told Jen he had accidentally factory reset the entire device. A little while after that, he informed Jen he was leaving to visit a few video game stores and would be back later to pick up Madeleine from school with her. However, when Stefan hadn't returned by 2:30 p.m., Jen called him but received no answer. She eventually decided she couldn't wait any longer and left on her own to get Madeleine. About 10 minutes after she left, Stefan called, claiming he had, once again, accidentally left his phone at home. It was during this period he also told Jen about getting the flat tire on US 192. These accounts of forgotten phones, factory resets, and vaguely located flat tires began to raise red flags for investigators trying to retrace Stefan Stearns' movements on the day Madeleine vanished. As the initial search for Madeleine Soto intensified, investigators began to meticulously scrutinize the accounts provided by Jennifer Soto and Stefan Stearns, alongside any available physical evidence. The Peace United Methodist Church, where Stefan claimed to have dropped Madeleine off, became an early point of interest. A security camera was located on the church property at the intersection of Town Loop Boulevard and Hunters Park Lane. Deputies checked the footage. It appeared to show a juvenile entering the property from Town Loop Boulevard around 8:40 a.m. and sitting on the ground in the parking lot. This figure then stood up at 8:58 a.m. and walked off in the direction of the school. However, the footage presented significant problems. It was of extremely poor quality, making it impossible to definitively identify the figure as Madeleine. Even the clothing couldn't be clearly discerned to match the description of what she was thought to be wearing. Furthermore, The vehicle that dropped off the blurry figure appeared to be a dark sedan, not Stefan's silver Lincoln. Traffic camera analysis painted an even more contradictory picture. While Stefan's car was indeed captured driving around the school area that morning, it was not seen traveling all the way to the church location he specified. In fact, footage showed that as his vehicle approached the school, it made a turn and began traveling in the opposite direction. When confronted with this discrepancy, his car being seen going southbound on John Young Parkway at 8:10 a.m., away from the school, Stefan claimed he had forgotten his gate clicker and had to return to the house to get it. "I'm sorry," he said. "Like I said, I was guesstimating these times. I'm not a morning person." Meanwhile, crucial observations came from one of Jennifer's roommates. The roommate stated she had gotten home around 11:30 p.m., the night before Madeline was reported missing, Sunday, February 25th. She didn't see anyone downstairs but heard people upstairs. She went to bed around 2:30 a.m. and heard someone in the bedroom where Stefan normally slept, the sound akin to someone putting something on a table. More significantly, the roommate saw Stefan the following morning, February 26th, around 10:30 a.m. She described his behavior as odd. He was going up and down the stairs and in and out of the condo multiple times. He was also doing laundry, which the roommate found particularly strange because she had never seen him do that before. The Orange County Sheriff's Department mobilized a massive search effort. Over 50 members of the emergency response team combed through hiking trails and woodland near the school grounds. K-9 units tracked Maddie's scent, while ATVs and horses were used to cover the rough terrain. During this time, information from Madeline's phone was accessed, revealing she had told people that upon turning 13, she wanted to go live in the woods. While this provided a potential, albeit worrying, lead, the inconsistencies in Stefan's story and the roommate's unsettling observations were rapidly shifting the focus of the investigation. The investigation took a significant and grim turn with a discovery at the Venetian Bay Village apartment complex dumpsters. On February 27th, the day after Madeline was reported missing, detectives traced the trash from the complex to the facility where it was separately emptied. The Orange County Sheriff's Office Forensics Unit meticulously searched the refuse and made a series of chilling finds. They located the intact tread of a tire, the pattern of which matched the rear passenger tire of Stefan Stearns' silver Lincoln. In close proximity to the tire tread, investigators found a white trash bag. This was the same bag that security camera footage from the apartment complex had captured Stefan tossing into the dumpster around 7:30 a.m. on February 26th, before he claimed to have taken Madeline to school. Inside this trash bag, the contents sent a shiver down the spines of the seasoned detectives. They found a black backpack with what appeared to be a purple Hawaiian print. Inside the backpack was an Orange County Public Schools issued laptop computer with Madeline Soto's name clearly on it. And perhaps most disturbingly, the bag also contained one white Croc shoe. The matching white Croc was later found inside Jen's bedroom in the condo. Both Jennifer and Stefan had specifically told police that Madeline was last seen wearing these white Crocs. This discovery was a pivotal moment. The items Madeline was supposedly wearing when she left for school, items she would have needed for her school day, had been discarded by Stefan Stearns, hours before she was even reported missing. It strongly suggested that Madeline never made it to school, and that Stefan's entire story about the morning drop-off was a fabrication. The recovery of Madeline's backpack, her school laptop, and her shoe from the dumpster, disposed of by the man who claimed to be the last to see her safe, painted a sinister picture. The investigation was no longer just about a missing girl. It was rapidly escalating into something far more ominous. The carefully constructed narrative Stefan Stearns had presented to authorities was crumbling, replaced by the stark reality of the evidence found amidst the refuse. With the damning evidence from the dumpster piling up, investigators secured a search warrant for Jennifer Soto's condo and Stefan Stearns' car. During the execution of this warrant, deputies requested access to Stefan's cell phone. He reluctantly granted access, claiming he had accidentally reset it to its factory settings. In fact, forensic teams later discovered that on the very day Madeline disappeared, February 26th, Stefan had performed a factory reset on his phone not once but twice. Despite these attempts to erase data, what authorities managed to recover was horrifying. A Google Drive account linked to Stefan's phone contained a cache of disturbing materials of a sexual nature. There were over 1,700 images and videos, dating back approximately 2 years throughout 2022 and 2023. Many of these depicted the sexual abuse of Madeleine Soto. A notable physical feature of Stefan's was visible in numerous images, leaving no doubt as to his identity as the adult male involved. The metadata embedded in these files, indicating the date each picture or video was taken, meant many of the offenses occurred when Madeleine was under the age of 12, constituting particularly heinous crimes. Investigators also found that Stefan had searched for the term sevoflurane, likely a misspelling of sevoflurane, an anesthetic that can cause hypnosis and amnesia, typically used in medical treatments, in the weeks prior to Maddie's disappearance. The search of Jennifer's condo yielded further corroboration. Detectives noted that the rooms in the photos from Stefan's phone matched the backgrounds within the condo. Chillingly, one of Madeleine's white Crocs shoes, matching the one found in the dumpster, was discovered in Jen's room. The phone also contained a nude photo of one of Jennifer's roommates, taken in the bathroom, which the roommate stated she had not permitted Stefan to take. On February 28th, 2 days after Madeleine vanished, Stefan Stearns was arrested by the Kissimmee Police Department. However, the initial arrest was not directly for Madeleine's disappearance or potential murder. The visual evidence investigators uncovered painted a truly horrifying picture of Madeleine Soto's last hours. Security camera footage from the Venetian Bay Village complex, captured at 7:30 a.m. on February 26th, showed Stefan Stearns throwing Madeleine's backpack and school-issued laptop into the dumpster. Then, just after tossing the white trash bag containing these items, Stefan returned to his vehicle. What surveillance cameras captured next, at 8:19 a.m., as he drove out through the complex's gates, was profoundly disturbing, though this specific footage has not been publicly released due to its graphic nature. According to police reports, visible in the front passenger seat of Stefan's Lincoln was a female, believed to be Madeleine, wearing a green hoodie. Her head was slumped over to her left shoulder, and her mouth was wide open. One police report described the young girl as being slumped over in an abnormal way for a person to be seated. This imagery strongly suggested that Madeleine was already deceased at this time, hours before her mother would even realize she was missing from school. The timeline of Stefan's movements, tracked by various cameras, continued to build a damning case. Around 9:40 a.m. that morning, after driving his seemingly lifeless passenger towards different purported destinations, Stefan's vehicle was seen entering a parking garage at a Holiday Inn Club Vacations on South John Young Parkway. Security footage from within the parking garage reportedly shows the driver, Stefan, exit the car, lift what appeared to be a limp female body from the front passenger seat, and move her into the trunk of the car. The car then exited the lot. Armed with this devastating visual evidence, investigators met with Jennifer Soto. They had to deliver the heart-wrenching news that although Madeleine's body had not yet been found, their investigation had tragically shifted from a missing person case to a homicide. They now believed Madeleine was dead, and likely had been since the morning she disappeared. Upon being informed of this, Jennifer sat silent for a few moments, then began to cry. During her interrogation, Jennifer was shown some of the images from Stefan's phone depicting the abuse of her daughter. Initially, she denied being able to identify the people in the photos, even as detectives described the content as clear. However, she became visibly upset. When confronted with the photos and the news that police believed Stefan had killed Madeleine, Jennifer reportedly called Stefan a master liar and manipulator. She admitted he would get angry and irritable, but claimed he only ever got mad at Madeleine regarding parenting things. Disturbingly, she also stated that while if Stefan had murdered her daughter, that was evil, the sex stuff wasn't evil. To the detectives, it seemed as though Jennifer had already accepted the victimization of her daughter, and her emotional responses during the interview felt insincere. The horrifying truth of what likely happened to Madeleine was beginning to emerge, piece by devastating piece. The search for Madeline Soto reached its tragic conclusion on Friday, March 1st, 2024. Authorities received a crucial tip from a man who had seen a news conference about Madeline's disappearance. He reported seeing Stephen Stearns' car on the afternoon of February 26th, around 1:30 p.m., pulled off to the side of Hickory Tree Road in a rural area of St. Cloud, Osceola County. The witness stated he saw a man outside the car with a tire iron in his hand. This man, presumably Stephen, looked scared, though the witness initially assumed it was due to being stranded with a flat tire, an event Stephen himself had mentioned to Jennifer. Law enforcement also obtained video surveillance footage from a street near Hickory Tree Road, showing a car resembling Stephen's driving down Hickory Tree Road around 2:00 p.m. on February 26th. Acting on this information, police converged on the rural area. They noted locked gates on both the east and west sides of the road. After the property owner unlocked one of the gates, search teams began to scour the area. It was only a few minutes into the search when their worst fears were realized. A captain noticed a pair of blue jeans just a few feet into a dense line of tall bamboo trees. Under the trees, they discovered what appeared to be a body. The body was wearing a green hoodie, blue jeans, and white socks. The bottoms of the socks were clean, indicating the victim had not walked there on her own. Dried grass and hay were found on top of the body, a crude attempt at concealment. Since the area where Madeline's body was found had been locked and the lock showed no signs of tampering, investigators surmised that Stephen would have had to lift her body over a barbed wire fence and drop it down before getting over the fence himself. The body was transported to the medical examiner's office, where it was formally identified as Madeline Soto. The cause of death was determined to be strangulation, and her manner of death was ruled a homicide. After Madeline's body was found, police contacted Jennifer Soto to deliver the devastating update. She began to cry and handed the phone to Madeline's biological father, Tyler Wallace, who had just arrived from Texas. Having heard his daughter was missing, Tyler had immediately driven from his home, arriving only hours before her body was discovered. Further incriminating evidence against Stephen Stearns continued to surface. On April 11th, while cleaning out a storage unit, Stephen's father found a hard drive, normally kept in a desktop computer, inside a storage bin. Also in the bin was a watch Stephen had told his father was in his bedroom. Believing his son had accessed the storage unit when he visited Northport on February 28th, 2 days after Maddie went missing and the day he was arrested, Stephen's father turned the hard drive over to the police. It was found to contain close to 35,000 images of child pornography, all appearing to be from 2020 and prior, though Madeline was reportedly not depicted in these specific images. The net of evidence was tightening around Stephen Stearns, painting a clear picture of a predator who had ultimately become a killer. In April 2024, Stephen Stearns was formally indicted by a grand jury and charged with first-degree murder in connection with the death of Madeline Soto. This was in addition to the more than 60 charges he already faced, stemming from the years of sexual abuse he inflicted upon her. The state attorney's office announced its intention to seek the death penalty. Prior to these horrific crimes, Stephen's only brushes with the law appeared to be multiple speeding tickets. Lingering questions surrounded Jennifer Soto and what she knew, if anything, about the abuse or the murder. Though she was not charged with any crime, inconsistencies in her statements and her disturbing comments during police interviews raised concerns. She had initially told police she saw Madeline the morning she disappeared, then later retracted it, saying she only possibly heard her. She spoke of a Woody Allen-type situation she feared, referring to the director marrying his younger stepdaughter, an odd concern unless she suspected an inappropriate dynamic. She also admitted to allowing Madeline to have sleepovers with Stephen, even after Jennifer and Stephen had broken up, a period when he had supposedly moved out in December 2023, but was apparently back to take Madeline to school on February 26th because Jen was too tired. Stephen's parents expressed their own suspicions about Jennifer's involvement, at least in knowing about the abuse. His mother wrote an email to Stephen in jail stating, "We all know Jen, name redacted, was heavily involved in this, and I'm disgusted she is free, and you are not when this is not all your fault." Stephen did not acknowledge these accusations in his reply. When his father confronted him in jail about why he had gone to Northport just before his arrest, Stefan said he had to grab a few things and get his ducks in a row. Kind of prepare myself for whatever was coming. When his father stated he wished he knew how the whole situation came about, Stefan cryptically replied, "Well, I didn't start it." His father pointed out that Stefan did participate, to which Stefan agreed. At no point did he deny killing Madeline. Madeline's teachers and friends had sensed something was wrong. One friend knew Madeline wanted to run away when she turned 13. Another described Madeline having a meltdown days before her death, and noted it wasn't uncommon for her to break down in tears. A counselor said Madeline often had sleepy days and would lay her head on her desk, suspecting depression. Another counselor noted Madeline had said Stefan made her feel weird and uncomfortable, and that her grades had improved after he officially moved out in December 2023. A growing memorial of balloons, cards, and toys appeared on Hickory Tree Road where Madeline's body was found. A vigil was held on April 13, 2024, where her father, Tyler Wallace, and stepmother, Tatiana, spoke lovingly of her. "You will always be remembered as the young girl running through pumpkin patches, learning to fish. It's hard to imagine that you're gone," Tatiana said. Tyler expressed his profound regret. "I just wish I could have seen her more." He received his daughter's ashes to bring back home to Texas. Stefan Stearns' CSAM trial is scheduled for May 2025, and his homicide trial is set for September 2025. The community, and indeed a wider audience horrified by the case, awaits justice for Madeline Soto. On May 25, 2020, an event occurred in Perth, Australia that would forever change the Rebelo family's life. 19-year-old Fabian, after finishing his shift at the supermarket, was waiting for his 58-year-old mother, Colleen Rebelo, to pick him up from work. But she never arrived. After several unsuccessful attempts to reach his mother by phone, a worried Fabian walked home. Entering the house, he heard the shower running in the bathroom. Fabian knocked on the door, but there was no response. When he decided to enter, the young man found his mother unconscious on the bathroom floor. Despite immediately calling an ambulance and attempting resuscitation himself, Colleen Rebelo was pronounced dead. While waiting for paramedics, Fabian performed artificial respiration and chest compressions, but all proved futile. The arriving medical team could only confirm her death. Initially, her passing appeared to be from natural causes. The woman had health problems: autoimmune thyroiditis, Hashimoto's disease, and certain cardiac issues. No one could have imagined that something much more sinister lay behind this tragedy. Colleen Rebelo was a loving and caring mother of 4 children, daughter Monica and 3 sons, Julian, Andre, and Fabian. Previously, the Rebelo family had owned a mining business, but after divorcing her husband, Colleen was left without work. She raised her children alone, working in cafes to support the family. At night, she took on additional work stocking shelves in stores, doing everything possible to give her children a decent future. Despite the difficulties, Colleen strived for self-fulfillment. At 51, she earned her bachelor's degree, then continued her education at university, specializing in healthcare management, policy, and leadership. Her perseverance paid off. Just 2 weeks before the tragic events, Colleen had secured a new job in the health department, which was a significant achievement for her. Colleen paid close attention to her health, especially considering her chronic condition. In her free time, she exercised and was known among acquaintances as a health enthusiast. Friends and colleagues described her as energetic, determined, and cheerful, always ready to help others. By 2020, the older children were already living independently. Julian, about whom little is known, had moved to another city and rarely appeared in his native Perth. Andre lived nearby with his girlfriend Gracie, while Monica and Fabian still remained with their mother. Monica, who closely resembled her older brother Julian in appearance, was studying to become a paramedic. Fabian, the youngest child, worked at a supermarket. Despite their different life paths, all the children maintained close ties with their mother. On the morning of May 25th, Monica spoke with her mother before leaving for her studies. According to her, Colleen looked perfectly healthy and didn't complain about feeling unwell. The woman was in good spirits, making plans for the future and rejoicing in her recent achievements. Nothing foretold the tragedy that would unfold just hours later. Colleen's middle son, 26-year-old Andre Rebello, and his girlfriend Gracie Piscopo were a well-known couple on the internet. They met in 2015 through mutual friends, essentially through Gracie's ex-boyfriend, and then began communicating via Instagram. By 2020, they already had a son named Romeo. Gracie was a successful model and influencer with over 1 million Instagram followers and 300,000 on YouTube. She regularly posted photos, videos, and promotional posts, which brought her a stable income. Her content included fashion photo shoots, food reviews, travel vlogs, and everyday life. Andre called himself a cryptocurrency expert, claiming he could predict market fluctuations and earn six-figure sums. He portrayed himself as a successful businessman who could generate significant income through investments in digital assets. However, in reality, his cryptocurrency operations brought minimal profit. There's a documented case where he earned just 22 Australian dollars. On social media, the couple displayed a luxurious lifestyle. Their videos showed a spacious house with a large fireplace, huge sofas, and expensive furniture. They drove a white Range Rover Evoque, traveled the world, and bought expensive things. Home videos shot in April 2020 clearly show the luxurious setting of their home and numerous designer items. In these online materials, Gracie was the main star. Her son Romeo took second place in frequency of appearance, while Andre only occasionally appeared on camera. He worked more behind the scenes, helping his girlfriend manage her social media and organize advertising contracts. However, reality differed greatly from what they showed their followers. The car was purchased on credit, which they struggled to pay off each month. The house didn't belong to them. The couple owned no real estate or other valuable assets. Their financial situation was extremely unstable. Gracie was the main source of income for the family. She could have earned more if necessary. But Andre's cryptocurrency business wasn't profitable. He constantly lost money instead of earning it. By May 2020, the couple's total debt exceeded 120,000 Australian dollars, about 75,000 US dollars. Colleen worried about her son's financial future. She considered his internet work a temporary phenomenon and feared that popularity could quickly disappear. The woman didn't approve of her son spending money on luxury instead of creating a financial safety net. She often told him that he needed to think about the future and invest in more reliable assets rather than maintaining an image on social media. Perhaps it was the constant pressure from his mother, as well as the need to match the image of a successful man alongside the popular Gracie, that pushed Andre toward the desperate step he would take in the near future. The morning of May 25th, 2020 began for Andre and Gracie with joyful anticipation. The couple planned to spend a pleasant day with Gracie's cousin, who had come to visit them from another city. They intended to have lunch together at a cafe, and Gracie was eagerly looking forward to this meeting. Around 10 o'clock in the morning, Colleen drove her youngest son Fabian to work at the supermarket, promising to pick him up at 2 p.m. after his shift ended. Returning home, she apparently went about her usual business. At approximately the same time, around 10 in the morning, something strange happened. Andre suddenly disappeared from home without saying anything to either Gracie or her cousin. He simply vanished without explanation. At first, Gracie didn't give it much importance, deciding he would return soon. But time passed, and Andre didn't appear. Worried, Gracie began sending him messages and calling, but all attempts to contact him remained unsuccessful. Between 11:10 and 11:25, she made 12 calls to his phone, but Andre didn't answer. Her messages became increasingly insistent. "Answer the call. Where are you? Don't you have a phone? What's wrong with you? Answer, damn it. I'm furious. I'm so angry at you." Several hours passed, and Gracie was beside herself with rage. She couldn't understand why Andre had disappeared, leaving her alone with her cousin. And suddenly, around 2 p.m., Andre returned home and, as if nothing had happened, asked the girls where they wanted to go for lunch. His behavior seemed strange and unusual. Gracie was shocked that he acted as if nothing special had happened, though he had made them wait for several hours without any explanation. Later she would say that although Andre sometimes put his phone on silent mode, that day he was particularly inattentive, Before heading to the cafe, Andre texted his mother asking her to look after their son Romeo today or tomorrow. He explained that he had things to do and wouldn't be able to take care of the child. Colleen didn't respond to this message. At that moment, the woman was already dead. Later, during the investigation, it was discovered that while Andre was away from home, his phone was detected near cell towers close to his mother's house. Witnesses also saw a white SUV similar to his Range Rover Evoque parked near Colleen's house at around 1:30 p.m., shortly before Andre returned home to Gracie. At the same time, around 2 p.m., Fabian was finishing his shift at the supermarket and waiting for his mother to pick him up. Not receiving her and getting no answer to his calls, he walked home. It was he who would discover Colleen's lifeless body in the bathroom. Police officers who arrived at the scene thoroughly examined Colleen's house but found nothing suspicious. Everything was in its place. Nothing was missing. All windows and doors in the house were locked from the inside. There were no signs of breaking in or intrusion by unauthorized persons. Given that Colleen had health problems, the initial theory leaned toward natural causes of death. The woman suffered from Hashimoto's disease and had heart problems, which could have led to sudden cardiac arrhythmia or even a brain aneurysm. The autopsy results didn't provide clarity. The exact cause of Colleen Rebello's death wasn't established. Not a single injury or trace of physical impact was found on her body. Everything pointed to the woman dying of natural causes. All of Colleen's children categorically ruled out the possibility of suicide. The woman was in excellent spirits, had recently received her master's degree, and had started a new job. She was making plans for the future and showed no signs of depression or suicidal tendencies. Colleen's death was a blow to the entire family. Her children were deeply shocked by what happened. The eldest son, Julian, who lived in another city, decided to stay in Perth for a couple of months to help with organizing the funeral and settling his mother's affairs. Since no suspicious circumstances were identified, the case of Colleen Rebello's death was effectively closed. However, strange events would soon begin to occur, forcing the police to return to this case and look at it from a completely different angle. After Colleen's death, her eldest son Julian decided to stay in Perth for several months to deal with his mother's affairs. It was he who began to notice strange things in Andre's behavior. When Julian was reviewing his mother's documents, he discovered that her driver's license had disappeared. When questioned about this, Andre admitted that he had taken it. Additionally, Andre took the initiative to settle Colleen's financial affairs, although Julian was supposed to act as the executor of her will. Then Julian learned that his mother had several life insurance policies. Neither he nor other relatives knew that just 2 weeks before Colleen's death, Andre had taken out 3 insurance policies on her for a total of more than $1 million. It also seemed strange that Andre had arranged for all of Colleen's mail to be redirected to his address, even though Monica and Fabian continued to live in their mother's house. Also, Andre was the first person the coroner contacted by phone, although Julian was initially supposed to fulfill this role. It seemed that Andre was always one step ahead and kept everything under control. This alarmed Julian, who couldn't understand why his brother was showing such unusual activity in their deceased mother's affairs. Suspicions intensified when Colleen's former psychologist called Monica and asked why fraudulent documents had been submitted to the insurance company on her behalf. Monica knew for certain that she hadn't sent any papers. The insurance companies, having examined the submitted documents in detail, noticed errors and inconsistencies and suspected fraud. One of the companies contacted the Western Australia police, and officers began an investigation. 5 months after Colleen Rebello's death, all her children were called in for questioning. The police obtained a warrant to search both Colleen's house and Andre and Gracie's residence. Following the searches and interrogations, Andre was arrested on fraud charges. Investigators discovered that after his mother's death, he had forged medical certificates, a will, and even the coroner's report. Andre had made himself the sole heir to all his mother's property, completely excluding his brothers and sister. Upon learning this, Julian, Monica, and Fabian were shocked and began to wonder if Andre had killed their mother. A carefully thought-out scheme was uncovered. Each time an insurance company denied Andre a payout, he found a way around it, usually with forged documents. He built a whole chain of fake papers, unwittingly creating evidence against himself. After being charged with fraud, Andre was released on bail while detectives continued gathering evidence. The man hoped that investigators wouldn't be able to prove his guilt in a more serious crime than document forgery. It's important to note that Gracie wasn't involved in the fraud and had nothing to do with this case. Detectives installed listening devices and a hidden camera in the couple's home. From October to December 2020, they recorded conversations between Andre and Gracie. In these recordings, Andre repeatedly confessed to forging documents, while Gracie expressed her bewilderment and disappointment. "What have you done? You've put us in a terrible position. Why did you do it? That was so stupid of you." She also expressed fears that she might end up a single mother. When Gracie asked, "How does one even commit insurance fraud? What are you going to do next? Run away?" Andre replied, "I didn't think this would happen. I'm not going to prison. I'll get my money and then leave the country before I end up behind bars." These recordings became important evidence for the investigation. They showed that Andre was aware of the wrongfulness of his actions and was already planning how to avoid punishment. While the investigation was ongoing, Andre continued his usual lifestyle. He lived with Gracie and their son. The family still recorded videos and posted photos on social media, maintaining the appearance of well-being. However, detectives continued gathering evidence and analyzing all the circumstances of Colleen Rebello's death. The deeper they dug, the more convinced they became that the case required a more thorough investigation. After 2 years of painstaking work, in November 2022, Andre Rebello was officially arrested and charged with murdering his mother. Detectives had conducted a thorough investigation and gathered enough circumstantial evidence to bring this charge. The prosecution presented their version of events. Andre and Gracie displayed a luxurious lifestyle on social media, which was partially financed through advertising contracts but also maintained with credit cards and personal loans. Gracie earned money independently, while Andre lied to her about his cryptocurrency business. He assured his girlfriend that he was making big money in cryptocurrency, but these funds were temporarily unavailable. In reality, Andre had nothing but enormous debts. According to court data, at the time of Colleen's death, the couple's total debt was $121,000. They had no assets and practically no savings. The pressure Andre experienced was enormous, though self-created. He lied to Gracie about his income, continued to maintain a luxurious lifestyle, and having become a father and partner to a successful woman, felt the need to prove his worth to her. Being in a relationship with a popular model, Andre strived to show that he was equally successful and could provide for his family. This psychological pressure, according to the prosecution, became the motive for his criminal actions. That's why, according to the prosecution's version, he took out several life insurance policies on his mother, made himself the sole heir, and then coldly took her life. If he had successfully implemented this scheme, he could have presented part of the money as income from cryptocurrency, thereby confirming his reputation as a successful businessman. Since much time had passed from the moment of Colleen's death until the police began investigating the case as murder, investigators couldn't find surveillance camera recordings in the area of her house. However, they discovered a detailed paper trail connecting Andre to several insurance companies. Detectives carefully analyzed every detail, every action of Andre before and after his mother's death. They studied his digital footprint, phone records, bank transactions, and witness testimonies. One detective told the court that when examining Andre's laptop, they discovered an attempt to delete all his internet activity from December 2019 through July 2020. However, he didn't delete Google search queries after his mother's death, including queries about causes of aneurysms, documents, and investigations. Digital data analysis also showed that Andre's phone was detected by cell towers near his mother's house at the time she presumably passed away. This suggests that at the moment of the tragedy, Andre was somewhere nearby. Additionally, witnesses were found who saw a white SUV parked near Colleen's house at approximately 1:30 p.m. on May 25th. The vehicle matched the description of Andre's car. Particularly suspicious was that the woman passed away just 2 weeks after Andre took out 3 life insurance policies in her name. The time frame was too short to consider this a coincidence. The prosecution claimed that Andre arranged everything to make Colleen's death look natural. He acted carefully but still made several mistakes. In photos taken by police immediately after discovering Colleen's body, it was visible how the woman was lying near the shower. She had makeup on her face, jewelry on her neck, and a gold watch on her wrist. Plus, she was dressed, not in shower clothes. Colleen hadn't let her hair down, and the mat she usually placed in the bathtub was on the floor. Everything looked unnatural, not like a normal shower procedure. According to her daughter, her mom always removed her jewelry and watch in her room, pinned up her hair, and only then went to the bathroom. These inconsistencies became important details in building the prosecution's case. They indicated that the scene in the bathroom had been staged rather than reflecting the natural course of events. The investigation reconstructed the events of that day. Colleen drove her youngest son to work at 10 in the morning and then immediately went home. At 2 p.m., she never appeared at the supermarket to pick up Fabian. This means the woman passed away in the time frame between 10 and 2 o'clock. It was during this period that Andre's phone was detected in the area of Colleen's house. Moreover, his sudden disappearance from home, not answering Gracie's calls, and returning at approximately 2 p.m. coincides with this time window. Detectives also discovered that Andre used artificial intelligence to create a fake voice message from Colleen's psychologist. This was further evidence of his careful preparation for fraud. In court, Andre claimed that his mother was very worried about turning 60 soon, and therefore wanted to take out insurance so that her children and grandchildren would have finances in case of her death. However, the prosecution pointed out that this doesn't explain why all these policies were in Andre's name as the sole beneficiary, rather than divided among all the children. The combination of circumstantial evidence created a convincing picture. Time coincidences, the location of Andre's phone at the moment of Colleen's presumed death, his strange behavior that day, the taking out of insurance policies immediately before the tragedy, the subsequent forgery of documents, all this pointed to his involvement in his mother's death. Although the investigation had no direct evidence of murder, such as video recording or confession to the crime, the combination of circumstances created an almost irrefutable version of events. Every minor detail, every coincidence, every strange action by Andre, everything worked against him, building up into a logical picture of premeditated crime. In court, Andre denied his guilt in his mother's murder, but admitted that he had taken out 3 insurance policies in Colleen Rebelow's name and then forged documents to receive payments. This confession to a lesser crime was, perhaps, a tactical move by the defense, an attempt to avoid a more serious charge. Andre's lawyers built a defense line on the basis that Colleen's death was the result of natural causes. They offered various possible causes, including cardiac arrhythmia or brain aneurysm, given the woman's existing health problems. The defense emphasized that the coroner couldn't establish the exact cause of death, and no injuries or traces of violent actions were found on the body. They insisted that the prosecution was built exclusively on circumstantial evidence and coincidences, without direct evidence of Andre's involvement in his mother's death. The lawyers also pointed out that Andre's subsequent actions in forging documents didn't prove his guilt in the murder. They claimed he could have simply taken advantage of the situation after his mother's natural death, trying to solve his financial problems, but that doesn't mean he was involved in the death itself. However, the defense's position was significantly weakened by Andre's own testimony and numerous inconsistencies in his version of events. His explanations of why he took out insurance policies only for himself, and not for all of Colleen's children, sounded unconvincing. Attempts to present his actions as concern for the family's financial well-being also raised doubts, given that he excluded his brothers and sister from the will. Andre himself remained confident throughout the process, almost emotionless. He rarely showed any feelings, even when discussing his mother's death or the possibility of receiving a life sentence. This coldness and detachment made an unfavorable impression on the jury. Andre Rebelow's story is not only an account of crime, but also of its destructive impact on the lives of many people, especially his loved ones. Above all, it's a story of how greed and deception destroyed an entire family. After Andre's arrest, the media actively covered the case, and Gracie found herself under public scrutiny. Some publications wrongfully linked her to Andre's crimes, although the official investigation completely ruled out her involvement. Gracie became a victim of circumstances, unexpectedly facing betrayal from the person closest to her. This was a difficult period for her. She had to not only cope with the shock of realizing that her partner could commit such a terrible crime, but also protect her young son from the negative consequences of this situation. The entire life she had built with Andre collapsed in an instant. "What have you done? You've put us in a terrible position." These words from Gracie, recorded during the surveillance of their home, reflect the depth of her shock and disappointment. She found herself face to face with a reality that was far different from the ideal lifestyle displayed on social media. The situation was no less complex for the Rebello family. Julian, Monica, and Fabian lost not only their beloved mother, but also a brother who betrayed their trust. They had to accept the thought that a member of their family could do something so horrible for money. It was especially hard for the youngest brother, Fabian, who discovered his mother's body. This traumatic experience left a deep mark on his psyche. The thought that all this might not have been an accident or natural death, but the result of his own brother's actions, was unbearable. Monica, who at that time was training to be a paramedic, also experienced severe emotional stress. She often wondered if she could have noticed some signs or prevented the tragedy if she had been home that day. Julian, who first began to notice strange things in Andre's behavior after his mother's death, felt a special responsibility for uncovering the truth. It was his vigilance and attention to detail that helped launch the process that ultimately led to Andre's arrest. Andre's father, Antonio, also became an unwitting victim of this situation. Present at the trial, he painfully observed the proceedings against his son. His reaction to the verdict was much more emotional than Andre's own, which many attendees noted. The trial of Andre Rebello attracted enormous public attention. His story seemed incredible. A young man from a good family, leading a luxurious lifestyle on social media, was accused of murdering his own mother for money. The prosecution presented all the collected evidence to the court. They detailed Andre's scheme, taking out insurance policies shortly before Colleen's death, his whereabouts on the day of the tragedy, subsequent attempts to receive insurance payments using forged documents. All this added up to a complete picture of the crime, the motive for which was Andre's financial situation, and his desire to maintain the appearance of a successful person alongside a famous model. Defense attorneys did everything possible to sow doubts about Andre's guilt in the murder. They acknowledged his guilt in fraud, but insisted that Colleen's death was the result of natural causes, and Andre merely tried to take advantage of the situation after the fact, not that he was involved in the death itself. The jury carefully listened to all arguments, examined the presented evidence and witness testimonies. Despite the absence of direct evidence of murder, the totality of circumstantial evidence proved convincing enough. In December 2024, after careful consideration of the case, the jury delivered a unanimous verdict. Andre Rebello was found guilty of murdering his mother. The moment of the verdict announcement was tense. Silence fell in the courtroom as the judge read the decision. Antonio Rebello, Andre's father, couldn't contain his emotions when the verdict was announced. His face expressed deep grief and shock. He looked completely devastated. Meanwhile, Andre himself remained almost indifferent. His face showed almost no emotion when he heard he was found guilty of the most serious crime. Since Andre didn't plead guilty, he faces the most severe punishment, a life sentence without the possibility of parole. The final sentence is to be announced in April 2025, after additional hearings and consideration of all circumstances of the case. Andre Rebello's case raises many questions about the psychology of a person capable of such a crime. What drives a person to cross the line and commit the irreparable? What psychological mechanisms underlie such behavior? According to experts who studied this case, Andre showed signs of narcissistic personality disorder. He was obsessed with creating a certain image in the eyes of others, especially his girlfriend Gracie. This image of a successful, wealthy man became more important to him than reality. Additionally, Andre exhibited signs of pathological lying. For years, he deceived Gracie about his income from cryptocurrency, creating an illusion of financial stability that didn't actually exist. This habit of lying perhaps made it psychologically easier for him to transition to more serious forms of deception, including fraud and document forgery. Also noteworthy is the emotional coldness that Andre demonstrated throughout the process. He rarely showed any emotions, even when discussing his mother's death or his possible life imprisonment. This detachment may indicate a lack of empathy, another alarming psychological sign. Social media played a special role in this story. The constant need to maintain a certain lifestyle for followers created additional pressure. The gap between reality and what was shown to the public grew larger, backing Andre into a corner. Andre's mother, Colleen, apparently was the only person who saw his real financial situation. Her concern about his future and possibly criticism of his lifestyle could have become an additional stress factor for Andre. The relationship between them, it seems, was tense due to different views on finances and career. Ultimately, fear of losing status, shame from possible exposure of his financial problems, and desperation from growing debts could have pushed Andre to extreme measures. Instead of admitting his mistakes and starting over, he chose the path of crime, which led to tragic consequences for everyone involved. Andre's actions destroyed not only the life of his mother, brothers, and sister, but also seriously impacted Gracie's life. She became a victim of deception and was left alone with a small child. After Andre's arrest, the media spoke unfavorably about her, which further aggravated her situation. Despite all the difficulties, Gracie was able to maintain her career in social media. Her popularity didn't decrease, but even increased after all these events. She continues to maintain her pages, posting photos and videos, but now her content has become more sincere and less focused on displaying luxury. Most importantly, Gracie found the strength to move on. She met a new partner, with whom they are raising her son Romeo together. This person, unlike Andre, doesn't strive for ostentatious luxury and provides her and the child with the stability and support they deserve. The Rebello family continues to cope with the aftermath of the tragedy. Julian, Monica, and Fabian support each other during this difficult period. They try to preserve the bright memory of their mother, remembering her not as a victim of a horrible crime, but as a wonderful woman who cared for them all her life and overcame difficulties for their well-being. Colleen Rebello is remembered by all who knew her as an exceptionally strong and purposeful individual. Despite the difficulties of being a single parent, she managed to get an education and create a better future for herself and her children. Her life path, from a cafe worker to a healthcare specialist, inspires many who knew her story. Andre Rebello's case has become a subject of discussion, not only in crime chronicles, but also in psychological research. It makes one think about how the pressure of social media and the desire to maintain a certain image can lead to catastrophic consequences. Andre Rebello's story is a reminder of how deceptive the appearance of well-being can be, especially in the era of social media. Behind beautiful photos and videos, a completely different reality can hide, full of debts, lies, and desperation. And sometimes this reality leads to tragic consequences that cannot be fixed. It's also a story about how the pursuit of an illusion of success can lead to the loss of what's most important: family, freedom, and ultimately, humanity. The desire to seem, rather than to be, became for Andre Rebello the beginning of a path that led him to the most terrible crime and destroyed the lives of everyone who was dear to him. In 2025, Andre Rebello awaits the final sentence, which will likely be maximally severe. But no punishment can bring Colleen back to life and repair the damage that was done to her family. The only thing that remains is to learn lessons from this tragic story and remember that no money or status is worth crossing moral and human principles for.